You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find. Welcome to the One More for the Good Guys podcast, where good guys gather to shed light on the good life, the people, and the good things that make it that way. I'm Mike McGill with my co-host, Jamie Akins. Now, raise your glass, lend us your ear, and let's have one more for the good guys. You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find.
On today's guest episode, we have our longtime friend and soon-to-be yours, Mr. Hunter Deacon. Memphis native, UT alumni, drummer for the John Stickley Trio, foodie and barbecue expert, and cigar newbie. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hunter Deacon.
Perfect.
Jamie,
Perfect. Cool. All right.
Jamie will let you know.
Test. All right, boys.
Check. All right.
We're rolling.
All right. Well, welcome, man.
Thank you.
Cheers. Good to see you.
Cheers indeed, man. Great to see you too.
It's been a while.
Has been a while.
Way too long, I feel like. I used to get to come out and see you guys play every once in a while at Barley's with Los Leslies, and it was always one of my favorite shows to come and see. You guys are so good, and but that hasn't happened in a while. I think with COVID and everything, it just and then I got busy with chores and, responsibilities here. I just didn't go out.
Yeah.
And I still ain't really a whole lot anyways, but that's neither here nor there.
I haven't been out too terribly much myself. I've been having to make myself go out more.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got out of the habit.
Yeah, I wonder why. I don't know. I think you just kind of get comfortable and got everything you need.
Yeah.
What the hell do I need to go anywhere for?
Yeah.
Or at least I kind of felt that way, and then I think too, just actually getting older, you just start it just seems to become more and more less. Of a thing to do,
right.
It just seems less important, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. When I ended up shifting some of my habits when I started traveling a lot, and it kind of turned into a thing where whenever I was home, I would actually just try to be home.
Mm-hmm. That's understandable.
Yeah.
That's what I would do too.
Yeah.
Well, and it's responsible and probably pretty healthy. You look better, and of course, like I said, we haven't seen each other in a long while, but you look great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, your color's good, and what was all the old folks say? But at any rate,
it's a classic. Yeah, your colors are looking good.
Yeah, you got good color. You don't look like you're dead. Man, I swear to God, I seen a lady today, and I'm not going to say where, but I'd stopped to grab some lunch. Where I was out working, and this lady was great. I was like, is she dead?
Was she just sitting there? Or moving?
No, she was moving, but I mean, she was like gray, like the alien guy off of American Dad. I mean, gray. I mean, like she looked horrible. And then it was like a car wreck. I couldn't stop looking, you know. And then I was like, oh, man, they're going to, what the? It just kept going on. It's like, poor thing. Ooh. But, I mean, her color, I don't know. It could have been makeup. I don't know what it was, but. Whew.
Yeah.
Looked terrible. So. You don't look dead yet.
That's good.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that is good.
Now, where did you grow up? You grew up in Memphis?
I did grow up in Memphis.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that about you.
Got that Memphis on me.
Well, that's okay. I dig it.
I don't know if that's a good thing to say or not, but that's
a great thing. Fuck them. That's a great thing to say. We're big. We're big Memphis fans. I mean, I went, and you know how big of a country music fan I am.
Oh, yeah.
But, when I got to go, I took a buddy through a trip out to Kansas, and we had come back, and we came a very indirect route and came back up through Memphis, and we had some time to kick around and some time to kill. And he was like, we got time to kill. We got time to do anything you want to do. What do you want to do? You want to go to Sun or Graceland? Or, I was like, I want to go to Rendezvous and eat ribs. And I want to go to Stax. That's what I want to do. So it was like much more important to me to see that than it was Sun Records or any of the other stuff, not to continue or credit any of that other stuff, but I was much more interested in that stuff, man.
So I've been to Stax, I don't know, 5 times. And I mean, the video alone, the opening, when you walk in, you watch that like 10 or 15 minute video and then you do the museum. That little opening alone just about makes me cry every time. And I'm not a person who,
not a crier.
I'm not a crier. I'm not in touch with many of my emotions.
Except at Stax.
Except when I'm at Stax, exactly.
Sissy.
I don't know what makes me more of a sissy, not crying or crying. But
no.
Anyway, Stax is amazing.
I know, man.
One thing, so Rendezvous is funny.
Yeah.
Because the baseline of barbecue in Memphis is so much higher than the baseline or than like the best barbecue in most places.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't say here. That was good. Because everybody be like, good, talk about Knoxville barbecue on their show.
People are stupid.
Anyway.
They don't know nothing about nothing.
So I've got a funny story about that. Anyway, baseline Memphis barbecue is really high. For me, Rendezvous is like the bottom of Memphis. It's still really good. But the ribs, especially, what they do is because of because of the volume, they boil the ribs. They cook them. Then they put them in their smoker to finish them.
Okay.
And they blast them in the smoker. Or it's like a really intense smoker. So you get really good smoke flavor. And they're great ribs. There's also the competition style versus Memphis style.
Sure.
And Memphis being kind of the home of competition barbecue, both exist in the same place.
Yeah.
So the style of rib where you can actually just pull the bone right out.
Yeah.
That's the competition style.
Yeah.
I don't like that style.
Okay.
I like the Memphis style, which, the dry rub, there's actually some chew, there's some pull, and you put the rib in your mouth and you pull the meat off the bone.
Yeah.
And then you put the bone in your mouth and you're, cleaning it and everything. That's how I like the ribs. So there are a few other places like the Memphis Barbecue Shop and Central Barbecue that are great. I mean, and then there's the Neely family, and there's a ton of places in there that are just phenomenal. But it's funny that Memphis has 2 styles kind of within the same place.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I just happen to like the little bit tougher, the one you got to work for a little bit more.
Well, I didn't know anything. You know, I only knew Rendezvous, and it was great.
Oh yeah, it's like I said.
Yeah.
Bass line is still great.
Yeah,
and there's not a thing wrong with Rendezvous.
And the greatest thing ever is all they had was Michelob on tap. Real Michelob. No Ultra.
Yeah.
No Michelob Light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelob.
Yeah. The red light. I was just like, are you kidding me? And they goes,
yeah.
Yeah, you want some beer? I was like, yeah. Picture of that.
Yeah.
Good, because that's all we serve. I was like, perfect, man. This is perfect.
So, all right. So you'll get a kick out of this. This is the story I was going to tell you. I was playing at Third and Lindsley, whatever. I think it's Lindsley. I can never remember exactly what it is, but that place in Nashville. Mm-hmm. Great venue. On Sundays, I think they do the WSM 100 broadcast from there. And we were, the Stickley Trio, we were playing there on that radio broadcast. And some another band called the Accidentals, I think, was there that night. They were opening, and we were in the back in the green room, which is kind of this own separate small little venue sort of thing. We were back there, and TV's on, just like the news was going. And weatherman came up and said, you know, stay tuned for your news or weather for the Mid-South or something like that. The name of Memphis is the Mid-South.
Yeah.
That's right. So Nashville Sky says, stay tuned for your weather in the Mid-South. And there's kind of this thing that anything good in Nashville, they stole from Memphis.
Sure.
And a few years ago, and this is all connected. I know I'm kind of going around about here. It's all connected.
Your time. We got time.
The Tennessean or whatever the big paper is in Nashville did a big thing of where's the best barbecue in Tennessee. And then, you know, surprise, it's not in Memphis. And it's like, all right, you assholes. All right. So, and of course, everyone in Memphis is writing into the paper. Everyone's saying like, you guys are idiots. No, Nashville does not have better barbecue.
Right.
And it turned out to be this place called Peg Leg Barbecue, I think.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So it's a famous place, and it is really good. Supposedly it's really good. I haven't been, but it turns out the guy's from Memphis and he grew up making barbecue with his family in Memphis, and ended up moving to Nashville and took Memphis barbecue and opened up a place in Nashville. So he's making Memphis barbecue in Nashville. And so they're all saying, oh, best barbecue we got in Tennessee is all here in Nashville. It's like, but it's being made by a Memphis boy.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Third and Lindsley. Weatherman says, here's all your weather for the Mid-South. So we go on stage, on the radio. People are there. And there's a point where the two other folks in our band, they're tuning. And so now I've got a mic. I say, hey, everyone, just, you know, while we have a minute, while they're getting their instruments tuned, I got a bone to pick with you people.
Perfect.
And then, you know, the room was, and I said, you know, I'm in the back and I hear weatherman saying, here's all the weather for the Mid-South. I said, newsflash, Nashville's not the Mid-South. I don't know where you guys get off, you know, stealing the nickname. You've stolen everything else from Memphis, and you're going to steal Memphis, or steal the Mid-South. Oh, and by the way, your barbecue's nowhere near as good. The only reason why you have good barbecue is because there's a guy from Memphis who came here to make it. Anyway, thanks for coming to our show. So I thought that was great. You know, people in the room were kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I leave the gig and I go and I'm hanging out with our friend Sam Lewis, and he's got another drummer buddy of his, and we're hanging out after the gig, and I'm flying high off this story. And I'm loving that I just called out all of Nashville on the radio.
You showed them.
Yeah. And so I tell him this story, and I said, I got a bone to pick with you people. And this other guy looks at me real serious, and Sam is laughing his ass off. Kimbrough was actually there. He's laughing his ass off. Like, you tell him. This guy says, just a thought. Most people don't like being called you people. Which made me laugh even harder.
Yeah.
And
like you gave a fuck.
Yeah.
In the first place. Yeah. Maybe you missed the point of this whole story.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. Most folks don't like being called you people. That's not normally a nice thing to say. And also, did you really mean to alienate the city that you're in on the radio? I was like, well, truth hurts or something like that. The next day, I'm having lunch with my aunt who lives in Nashville. And she's very quiet. She's great. Just a very kind of nice, quiet lady. And we get together and she looks at me and she goes, and starts laughing. And I was like, what happened? She goes, you people. And of course, I'm just gut laughing. I said, okay, you heard? She goes, oh, I heard. Yeah, I heard. Anyway, so barbecue, Memphis, Nashville, stealing everything that's good from Memphis. And
yeah.
Anyway, I do love Nashville. I like hanging out there, but it's also fun to poke fun at it from time to time.
Whatever. Grow up. Don't, if I've got to be anywhere where I got to take myself so seriously that I can't have a good time and entertain myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, what am I doing here? Yeah, because that's not going to work, Yeah, well, Memphis barbecue, I've had it all. I've had Memphis, and I've had Kansas City barbecue, even on that same trip, and it was good. It was good. But again, two completely different styles.
Yeah, different styles, different philosophies of how to eat it and what to do with it.
Yeah. But I can say this, bar none. Now, and I'm not I know Memphis is not big for like beef.
Mm-hmm.
More of the pork and chicken stuff, especially the pork. But, they can't hold a candle. And I hate to give Texas any credit for anything. But you talking about beef, brisket and or beef ribs.
Yeah.
And links.
Steaks.
Yeah.
There ain't no.
Yeah. Those places out there, like Montana's is that way with beef too. Damn. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, we went out there in 2016 to see the Vols play A&M, and Carl, my buddy Carl. Yeah. So Carl's he's Texas guy, A&M alum, and at that time, with the way football was set up, we wouldn't play them until like 2080 or some shit. It was way off that we would ever get to see them again at that point in time. Right. And so we go, and Carl wanted us to go, and he wanted us to go and see some of his old haunts and a lot of this other stuff, So we went, and there was a lot of good stories came out of that trip. Probably one of the best road trips I'd ever taken in a long while, if not ever. But we stopped at this place, and we were going to go down to Lockhart, where there was the one guy that's been there. He came with the building, and Jesus blessed a cow, and all that shit. And we didn't get a chance to go there, but we went to this place in College Station, and it was a cinder block building. A window on each end. That was it. And and out front there was a historical marker of the Historical Register of Deeds. This place was on the important list, and we went up and
was it on the important list for being a restaurant?
Yes, for being a barbecue joint.
Making barbecue. And Jesus was the Lance Corporal. Huh?
Yeah. And I got pictures of it here on my phone somewhere, but with the name and everything. But anyway, we go in and we read the plaque, and this guy was a German immigrant, like most every other original Texan.
Right.
You know, well, we'll save that for another podcast about migrants or people, immigrants. But so anyway, we go in, and I'm talking, you know, Formica countertops, orange and yellow, you know, copper tone and and squash colored appliances, and you know, linoleum rugs, and you know, the whole. I mean, 1970s. This place hadn't had a facelift since 70. And so you're already in a time capsule, you know, when you walk into this joint. And the waitress comes up, and, you know, I bet she hadn't missed getting her hair done on a Friday in 36 years. You hear me? It was just,
oh, man.
Just right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
Hairdresser.
And she comes up, and everybody's talking, and they're trying to figure out what we're getting. Well, we're going out to one of his old haunts, which was a place called Dudley's Draw, this bar down on campus that night. And then we're going to Yale practice that they do every Friday. They have like 30,000 students that show up at every home game. And they show up on Friday night at the stadium, and they go over all their yells and have like this pep rally every home game Friday night. It's incredible.
Well, we got the Vol Walk.
Yeah, exactly. Tradition. Yeah, that brick got put there yesterday. Dipshit. You know? So I knew we were going to, Pilot brought that in, okay? Before they fucked everybody. That's right. And then went and hired a...
That's right, brick by brick.
Yeah. So, I was about to go way off, but anyway, the waitress comes up, and you know, it's Patricia or Dot or you know, some old school Barb, some old school Southern name, you know. And she starts going around the table. What are you gonna have? What would you like? And this one wanted the brisket, and this one wanted the brisket and links, and this one wanted beef ribs, and this one wanted this, and you know, all the way around. And I'm the last one. And she goes, what are you gonna have, honey? I said, Barb, I hope I'm gonna have the meat sweats when I leave here.
Yeah.
She goes, what do you want to order? I said, I want everything.
Yeah, you want the plate. Get it all.
Yeah, I want the platter.
Yeah.
I want the sampler. I want everything.
Yeah.
The beans, the links, the beef, the pork, the bird. Bring it on.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was like a $35 plate or whatever, or $40, whatever it was. I mean, and it's giant. It's big as this tray.
Yeah.
You know, giant. And everybody's like, what are you doing? And I was like,
oh, you got to.
I'm fucking planning ahead. Y'all, I can't help it. You all are a bunch of dummies. I said, we're going out to drink beer all night.
Right.
Go to this pep rally with 30,000 screaming people that don't even do cheers. They call them yells. They don't have female cheerleaders. They've got cadets that teach you all of this stuff. And I said, I'm sure when we get back to the hotel, we're going to be ripped.
Yeah.
And I'm going to want a cold brisket sandwich with some mayo and some pickles on it.
Yeah.
At the room. Oh, you can just see it hit him like he might be the smartest man we've ever met. You know? Like, yeah, duh. But at any rate, so this place was still that kind of place that you could you couldn't smoke inside, which was a real bummer. Because when they got all that, when they had decked out their facelift in 1973, you definitely could smoke in there, you know.
Thank God.
Yeah, and so we walked outside and had a cigarette, like mid-meal, me and Carl. And Barb comes walking out of the restaurant and puts a sign up, a cardboard sign that's written in magic markers and said, "Meat sold out." And I was like, we're in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
We are in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but Texas for me had the best, like I said, the beef and stuff was just phenomenal.
I still haven't had Texas, and I a lot of folks like to poke at me because I do some barbecuing and some smoking and being from Memphis, I have folks that like to poke me like, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm dying to go have some. And I know it's a totally different animal, but man, I mean, literally and metaphorically, but,
well, you know, the thing that I've noticed more about like Texas barbecue, it's over seasoned.
Right.
You can taste the meat.
Yes. So that's
not so much of the everything else.
That's a damn big pet peeve of mine. Go ahead. That's what you're going to say. Well, I got something to add.
So the thing I like about Memphis, I like pork. I mean, I like beef too.
Yeah, sure.
I grew up with pork. I like pork.
Yeah.
It is more seasoned than Texas.
Yeah.
But the idea, sort of kind of like the philosophy of it, is similar in that you season the meat the way you want it. And, the whole idea with dry rub is that it can stand on its own. You want sauce? Yeah. We got some sauce.
That's it, man. Don't hide behind your damn sauce.
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's like the meat can stand alone.
Yeah.
And I mean, pulled pork sandwiches are a huge thing in Memphis. I don't even like sandwiches that much because the bread gets in the way. Yeah. To me, I'd rather just have a pile of pork.
Yeah. And a fork.
I don't want any sauce. The meat itself needs to be moist enough and have all the flavor that you want in it. And so the baseline, I think, is like the Texas style. Yeah. Salt, pepper, walk away. Memphis is just like, that's great. We're going to use pork. We're going to add a little bit more to it. But the idea is still the same. This is good enough as it is. Yeah. If you want some vinegar, you want some whatever, here it is. Knock yourself out. But you can 100% just take that piece of chicken, take that piece of pork, put it in your mouth and be happy. Yeah. And that's always how I try to make it. And I offer it to friends and stuff like, we got some sauce. There's stuff here and there, but try it without it. See if you can handle it without it. Yeah. And
that is, look, man. My pet peeve is with damn hamburgers. Let me tell you right now.
Yeah.
There's a place in town. I'm not going to name names. Been there multiple times. Best hamburger in Knoxville. Well, it is not. Here's what pisses me off about it. Salt is, as far as kitchen items go and ingredients, is the cheapest of them all next to water. Water, salt, in that order. You can have just like you said, the meat standing on its own. If you can't take a hamburger patty off and eat it and be like, oh, that's by itself, then it sucks. If you have to stack all that other shit on there to make it edible, you know what the hell you're doing. Especially since you can take some good damn kosher salt and fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pisses me off. You ever watch Gordon Ramsay?
No.
That some bitch salt's like, he don't give a damn.
I would rather rip my toenails out with wire pliers.
I'll tell you what, man.
I hate it.
Let me tell you, I was
just
like
rather sit down Indian style and start ripping off toenails with wire pliers. Descriptive enough?
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
At first, I was that way with it, but he's like one of the few people that are just super, super, super fucking popular celebrity.
Oh, yeah.
That are also a damn master at what they do.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
When you're, you know, obviously even in music, where the most talented person, one of the most talented persons is also the most famous person.
Yeah.
Very rarely does that happen.
That's
Some
just a
bitch
bonus.
is an absolute master at what he does. And on top of all that shit, he's worth like nearly $1 billion now because of the stuff he's got his hands in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, not to go into his bullshit, but he salts piss out of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, you have to salt meat, especially ground beef. That's what it's about.
Man, something that gets me and being a Southerner, especially, is like,
God, this could be 2 hours worth of talk right here. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm fine if we want to talk about me for 2 hours.
We may not find out anything about you because we just
You're from Memphis. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. No, like just making, I made a big pot of pinto beans and cornbread the other night, fried potatoes, and, some hot peppers and pickled stuff on the side just for, just simple, traditional hillbilly peasant meal,
Yeah.
and so good. And man, people want to, I don't know why they want to do it. They want to chop shit up and put it in the beans. They want to put garlic, and they want to put this, and they want to put that. And it's just like, no, that's not. And everybody's like, how do you get your beans so thick? There's the juices, and it's that dark color, that turns dark. And they're not fucking soupy. And I'm like, because you cooked the piss out of them.
They're better 4 days later.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
So much better.
What are you putting in them then? What are you putting in them? Don't have to give your secret away, but just generally.
Salt, pepper, and bacon.
I was going to say, you got to be using pork fat somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Either a ham hock or bacon or something.
And you can do a ham bone or something, from a ham you've saved, or go out and get some salt pork or something. If you can find it.
Not everybody carries it now.
But even if you can't, on a huge, like a 2-pound sack of beans in a pot, make sure you put plenty of water, and you cook them for about 6 hours. And you put about 6 or 8 strips of bacon in it. Salt and pepper, and that's it. Walk away, and I guarantee you they'll be the best fucking pinto beans you've ever had.
I tell you,
everybody's like, "Well, I can do cornbread now." Boy, I know how to make.
Yeah, bring it over, and I'll hand you your ass.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about cornbread one year.
Yeah,
Dad calls me.
Everybody's like, "You can put mayonnaise in it. You can put eggs in it." I'm like, "You can put fucking cornmeal. You can put a tablespoon of bacon grease, Crisco, and buttermilk in it." That's all you fucking need.
Yeah.
And it'll be the best shit you've ever had.
Well, it's made to be small, a few ingredients. That's why they made it.
Right. It's peasant food. It's just like real Italian food.
Yeah.
So
you don't have chunks of onions that fucking big and all this shit. It's pureed almost. It's cooked down so much and chopped up so fine.
It almost looks like a refried, got that refried bean look to it on the top, where it's, we cook it in a crock pot. I'll tell you, Meg makes some damn good beans. I grew up, I lived with a 100-year-old woman that had been cooking since the Titanic went down. And she was good. I mean, made pinto beans every day. Every day. So Dad, one time, several years ago, we were Christmas, and he calls me up, and this lady he was seeing, she's going to bring the cornbread. And I said, now wait just a minute. I said, are you sure about that? Oh, yeah, she's a good cook, whatever. And this cornbread's one of my specialties.
Yeah,
now.
me too.
We
man.
kill it.
It's one of
Meg
my
and I
heavies.
can kill cornbread, but I mean, I grew up like you did.
Yeah.
That's all we read. So that bitch shows up with Jiffy.
Oh no!
Sweet cornbread cut into squares.
Did you kill her?
I pulled Dad aside. When you say him, ask him. I pulled Dad aside and I said,
"Look and just take the butter knife and just hit her right in the side of the neck with it."
I mean,
oh my God!
I told Dad, I pulled him aside and I said, "Don't you ever bring her back to Christmas?"
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, Dad. What are your intentions with this woman?
What are your intentions with this woman?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because she's from then he told me she was from up north, and I said, "You let her bring cornbread over to my house?"
Yeah.
It tasted like pound cake, but not as good.
No.
It was awful.
It's not. Well, that's what I was going to say about beans. Call it anything you want, but don't call it pinto beans if you're putting all this other shit in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care what you call it. You can call it, and it's good, but it's not pinto bean. It's not traditional pinto beans. It just ain't.
Yeah.
With all that other shit in it. My granddad, I never got to meet him. He passed away before I was born, but my mom always talked about he would make white beans with a pork shoulder, or not a pork shoulder, but what am I trying to say? A picnic.
Yeah.
A little picnic shoulder.
Yeah.
The back cut off of that. And she's like, I've just never had it to where it was like his, And so I just thought, well, they were poor people. I can only imagine how they probably cooked it. And I seared that thing and got it nice and seared and put it in and just salt, pepper, white beans, cooked them just like pintos. Got it all broke apart, pulled it. And she was like, how'd you do that? I was like, yeah. So to this day, we used to, every once in a while when the Romeos would practice over at Macho's house, we would, we were all so poor then that everybody'd kick in $4 or $5, and, we'd cook a big meal on a Thursday night for rehearsal and feed everybody, for like $20, but we'd have beans and cornbread and, get those big pork steaks at the, bone in. Nobody wants to buy at the store.
Oh, yeah.
Beside people that's got some sense, and it was simple. Salt, pepper, some Cavenders over charcoal. Man, it was so good, but the same way with Italian food. I don't want to, if I smell a sauce or eat a sauce, I don't want to feel like I just stuck my head in a bucket of oregano.
Right.
It's not the way it's made. It's not the way they made it, I worked for a little Italian guy, and over at the mall, I made pizzas forever. And this guy was from the old country. And learned so much from him about cooking and and he'd make those sausage rolls and strombolis and calzones and the sauce was always just super simple, but you were just like, this is what it's supposed to be like,
Yeah.
Spinach calzone with ricotta cheese and mozzarella, and man, fresh cooked spinach. It was so good. And the easy sauce, but at any rate, I digress. I just don't feel like you got to put everything in the world in something, and then they don't taste anything like what you're eating. It tastes like all the flavor flavorings you put in it.
Yeah.
Well, one thing too about burgers in particular, I think, is that sounds like what I'm going to say is the opposite of what you're saying, but I mean it the same way. And that is, burgers can take a lot.
Yeah.
You can, but I don't mean, shoving it full of stuff. I mean, if you season it, you can season it like you can put a shitload of salt on it.
Yeah.
You can put a shitload of pepper in it.
Yeah.
You have a big old chunk of ground meat, and it's just meat, fat, and seasoning. You can go to town as long as you just like keep the ingredient list simple.
Yeah.
And one of the things, this is another Memphis thing. You're talking about burgers around Knoxville. There are a couple places I think that have some good burgers here, but that's another thing that Memphis does really well. And I did not realize this until I was actually living in Chicago at the time. And I went to this place. This is great beer pub, gastropub kind of thing. It's that sounds more highfalutin than it actually is. It's just like a beer garden. It was a really great spot. And their thing was, like always voted best burger in Chicago. All right, go there, have some with the famous German place in Chicago is called the Berghoff. And so all the places had Berghoff beer, old school German place. So you go get a pitcher of Berghoff beer and a burger at this place in Chicago. Just great. But the burger was kind of bland. It was cooked great, whatever.
Yeah.
Just kind of bland. And I remember just thinking like, man, this is Chicago. People know how to cook meat in Chicago.
Yeah.
How is this the best burger in Chicago? And this isn't a highfalutin place. This is a place that should be like down and dirty and doing it right.
Yeah, yeah.
What's going on here? And I've had similar things in Knoxville where burgers I've had have been like, it's good. It's missing a few things, or whatever. And there's another place I'm going to name drop in Memphis called Roxy's. Roxy's, there we go. That is an old little grocery store that just has a flat top grill in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in, I guess they call it Uptown, so kind of like north side of downtown. Old little grocery store. You walk in, there's flies everywhere. Just dirty old place. But place has probably been there for 75 years.
Yeah.
Grill's been there for 75 years. The only cleaning is they scrape it off a little bit here and there. And a lot of the places in Memphis get their meat from a place called Charlie's Meat Market, which is this great butcher. And a whole bunch of places just get all the trimmings from them. And I'm pretty sure Roxy's is one of them. And I mean, it wasn't a smash burger, which I think that's if you're going to do a burger, if you're not going to make a good patty and do it right, do a smash burger because it's can be kind of foolproof.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot with that.
Well, you get more char on it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
This wasn't a smash burger. This was a full-on thick patty and huge.
Yeah.
Like a Frisbee. And on that flat top grill with all those flies around and everything, it is the best fucking burger I've ever had.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
So, if anyone, whoever's listening, if they're going to go to Memphis, go to Roxy's.
Well, whoever's listening, if you're going to make a damn hamburger patty, salt and pepper it.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, you're already eating hamburger.
I normally, when I do my burgers, I just, I put it all in a bowl and mix it up, mix my salt and pepper in as I'm going.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
And then I hit it a little bit as it's, just to watch shit jump around in the pan, and when the blood starts coming out of the top of it, I flip it and I'll leave it the fuck alone and I wait,
So another thing,
but high heat, just to, it doesn't matter if it's a thick one but that's the telltale sign for me is to, when the blood starts coming up to the top on that first, pardon me, that's when I flip it.
One of the things I do too is I think so many people will make a round burger, and then they'll sort of push it down, and inevitably that just turns into a meatball. Everything sucks up. And I always make burgers they start off huge, and I almost, push my hand in the middle and almost make a slight dimple. Mm-hmm. And then it pulls in on itself and kind of flattens itself out.
Yeah.
And always, if I take burgers out, which I haven't made them in a while, but I'd make all these patties, and they're, huge with this almost like plate effect in the middle.
Yeah.
And I've had so many friends just look at me like, that is entirely too big. But just, make a little ball and just put it in like, no, nope. Trust me, it's got to be this big, and you got to do a little thing in the middle.
Yeah.
And just watch it. And you can see the liquid, and you just watch it just kind of.
Yeah, pucker up.
Yeah. And then you come out, and it's cooked evenly, and it's flat, and it's like, there you go.
Yeah.
There's no, yeah.
Well, and too big this way don't make a damn bit of difference. It's this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it's too thick, you can't, and take you half an hour.
Yep.
No, that's exactly right. That's when you get into people saying it's not done. Even if they're a well person or even a medium well, that's when because you can't control it. You can't, what are you going to do? You got laser vision. You're going to cook it like fucking Superman in the pan. You can't do that with it being thick. I start out with as much like you, as big as I want it. Mm-hmm. And bigger than what I actually want it.
Yeah.
And I almost roll it like I would be rolling dough. Mm-hmm. So where it's cupped, like you're talking about, and then I start, spreading it out and get it bigger around than what you think your bun's going to be, for sure.
Because it's going to cook down.
Yeah, it's going to draw up.
It doesn't. You don't have enough fat in it, and it's not going to be good anyway.
Yeah.
So.
I had a buddy bring me, I got some in the freezer over there. I'll give you a bag of it, but some grass fed, just real beef, that he buys a cow every year, and always brings me, 6 or 7 things. And but I made some of those the other night, and they were absolutely delicious, But same thing, got them bigger than what I originally thought they were going to be. Then I wanted them, and they suck up.
And steaks is a whole different story, but this town, I'm not going to. It's just not good for that.
I'll tell you, man. Back in the day, the Peddler used to be the place up in Gatlinburg.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never been
still there. And I don't know what it's like now. Thumbs down from you, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Warwick, Jimmy? Mm-hmm. Jimmy's dad used to be the general manager at the Peddler back in the day. And, man, back in the day, if you wanted a steak, that was where to go.
Yeah.
And if you didn't want a steak, they have a salad bar that's as big as the honky tonk. It's got everything and anything you could ever imagine on it. Mm-hmm. And it's almost worth just going and just ordering the salad bar. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Used to do it at Arthur's.
Yeah. But it's really good. We went out on Christmas, or back for our Christmas party, and went to Chop House down in Fountain City, and I had a good steak there.
Yeah, they're pretty. Yeah, it's. I went there. Was last night we went.
Oh yeah,
and got a ribeye. Doing this carb thing. It was $31. Should have been less, and it was fine. It was at least seasoned. Mm-hmm. But I mean, and not too long ago, we talked about this off the air, and I'm not going to mention places, but I went to a place that been going 30 years or 25. It was not edible.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Not edible.
I remember you saying
Had
that.
they not done some stuff to mitigate the bill, it'd have been $200 too. And I don't care. There's another place in town known for just this. And I've been there 3 or 4 times, and the bills depends on, like, we took Dad to this place for his 70th birthday, and it was $800. Now there were 6 of us. That'll kind of tell you where it is, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And was it worth that? No, not even remotely. I've had better steak in a damn casino in Montana.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
There's some good food out in Montana.
They don't fuck around with meat.
No,
out
they
there.
don't.
If you order something medium well, they will laugh in your face. Now, nobody would do that at my table because they got laughed at the car.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. But
They didn't bring Jiffy cornbread either, did they?
Hell no, they did. My God.
Wait a minute. Jiffy corn muffin mix.
Corn muffin
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Let's be precise.
Mix.
I can't be bitching about people calling pinto beans something and not hold true. I gotta hold true there. So
Now, I will say one thing. Have you ever spent any time, either you guys ever spent any time in Pittsburgh?
oh yeah. Love Pittsburgh, man.
I've only been one time.
It's one of my favorite
and
places. I got a good buddy up there.
Man, I love that town. At least the one time I went, I was there for about 3 days. And we went to this bar. We finished a gig, and we just looked up, best dive bar in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And, it was some like O'Houlihan's or some name like that.
Yeah.
We get there, and it's a sports bar. I'm like, well, it's Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's going to be a sports bar.
Of course.
But, all right, let's see. We were hoping for more, just a divey kind of spot. But let's just see what it's like. We go in, and it was great.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they had was Reuben tater tots.
Oh shit.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Sounds like blasphemy, but I'm waiting to
No,
but at the
this
same
was-
time, I'm like a
Tell
very
me
This
more.
is-
Tell me more.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
me more.
This is to this day one of the best snack appetizer things I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
So they took the potato, you grate it up. They took sauerkraut, and I don't know if they chopped it or what, mixed it all in with the potatoes into the tater tot shape.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if they did any onions with it as well. I think they probably did. And they made tots out of this mixture,
Yeah.
fried those up, and then your sauce was the Thousand Island. There's nothing better.
Really?
It was the best bar food, the best snack,
Yeah.
best whatever. I mean, and you'd think it'd be too wet or it wouldn't hold together. Nope. They were perfect. It was the perfect bar food. And so, yeah, and I've also had went down to some Italian market and had a soft shell crab. It was like a seafood market in that sort of industrial strip on one of the 3 zones over there, and went to this. I think it's kind of a famous seafood market, and there's a cafeteria spot. Got a soft shell crab sandwich, which I think is one of their things there, with a black cherry soda, which was it Dr. Brown's or something like that. It's kind of the thing, I guess.
Yeah. It's all Yinzers.
Yeah.
That's what when in Rome,
Yeah.
when in Yinzer country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My rule is always as God intended.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
this
what
is-
are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to drink Iron City beer.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Speaking of which, can I refresh?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Grab me one while you're over there. If you can you finagle your way through there? I tell you one of the really fun places. One of the fun Pittsburgh stories was we went to this. I got a really close friend who lives up there, and we went to, like, the first night I was there. We went to. Thanks, brother. We went to we went and got like 5 different pies from 5 different pizzerias. You know, 1 pepperoni, 1 cheese, or maybe we did all of them the same. So because we were going to try to pick out the best one, and all of them, I believe it was 4. I said 5. I think it was just 4 places, but all of them run still family owned, still Italians. You know, the checker tablecloths, the Tiffany lamps, you know, I mean, all of them look just like they were supposed to look, right?
Yeah.
And we brought them back and had them. And so that was a really, really great food night in Pittsburgh. Was the pizzas were pretty damn great. And then, of course, if you go down along the strip, there's several Polish delis. And, you know, the links and the pierogies and the kraut and the noodles. I don't even know the real names for them other than the pierogies. But, the only one I know is the potato dumpling noodle thing. I think it's called halushki. Yeah.
That's about the only thing I know.
And, you know, we went in and my buddy I was like, what do we get? I don't know what to get. Cause and I think this was my first trip to Pittsburgh actually. And he looked up and he was like, seen the special and he was like, just order the special. I was like, okay. So I did. And I'm not a kraut fan. I'm not a sauerkraut fan. But man, I'm telling you, it was the tits. I mean, it was just so good. So good.
And you ate the sauerkraut.
Yeah, I ate everything on it. And it was like $8.99.
I got another sauerkraut place you need to go.
You know, it was like $8.99.
I'll tell you about it in a minute, but
go ahead. Where's it at?
Down Area, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
You need to have a pork chop sandwich at the Snappy Lunch with sauerkraut on it. That's where Andy Griffith is from.
Yeah.
Snappy Lunch.
Snappy Lunch.
Snappy Lunch.
Yes.
There was a Snappy Lunch in the show, too.
Okay.
And it's right next to Floyd's, or right there on the same side as Floyd's barbershop.
Right.
It was.
So how do they do their pork chop sandwich? Is it a grilled or is it?
I can't remember if it's on like a biscuit or no.
Chicken
it's
fried or
it's fried. I got a picture.
I'd say chicken fried. I'm now acting like a Texan. But that's pretty good.
It's worth the trip just for that, actually.
I like to take a pork loin or even a chicken breast or something and butterfly it or, you know, cut the pork loin in like or even a tenderloin. Mm-hmm. You can do it with a tenderloin too, but, you know, cut about a 3-inch chop out of it, but then split it, butterfly it, and then just pound that thing.
Want to bite out of it. You can
nice. Yeah.
Kraut falling stuff.
So it's breadcrumbed and deep fried.
Yeah, deep fried.
Yeah,
it's sweet kraut. It's not real soft.
Or cracker crumb.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
But I like doing that with a chop or a chicken breast or something, and then just beat that damn thing
maybe
with
it's slow. It might be slow.
Yeah,
it reminded me of that though. I can't remember. It might be slow, sweet, slow or something. But if you didn't eat kraut at Granny's house, she got beat to death.
Yeah.
She'd have beat you. She made her own too, buddy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd, I guess, she from East Tennessee, Appalachian people make kraut, but you know, there's a German in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They, I like to take those, like the pork or the chicken and then just beat it with a hammer, you know, a meat hammer and just as thin as I can get it. Mm-hmm. And either egg wash it or buttermilk and then cracker crumbs.
Yeah.
Whoa. Man, or just do even if you just did just a dust, even if you just did it dry, like get your flour seasoned with what you want, and then just do it dry and watch it, do its thing and just make little cutlets. Oh,
we need to do a country cooking episode.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Oh yeah,
we're getting close. But I like doing that too. That's always good. But yeah, I just think that on certain things, especially like if you're cooking any type of any ethnic choosing of dish, I just think the simpler the better.
Yeah,
that you're going to get it like it was intended.
Yeah.
Intended, excuse me. They didn't have, all the different seasonings in the market that had 400 different kinds of fucking paprika. It's like, so anyway, just my opinion. Hey folks, if you're looking for a cool, eclectic place with an outside patio, plenty of UT sports games, cold beer, and live music on the weekends, then look no further than one of our homes away from home, Trailhead Beer Market, located at 1317 Island Home Avenue in South Knoxville, Tennessee. Trailhead is South Knoxville's first beer market, situated on the banks of the Tennessee River and in the backyard of the Urban Wilderness and Iams Nature Center. You can find more info on Facebook and Instagram about specials, live acts, and the goings-on, and be sure to tell them McGill and Jamie sent you, and have one more for the good guys. But so, getting back to Memphis. Born and raised Memphis.
Born and raised.
Yeah. Where city kid?
Yeah.
Suburban kid?
Nah, city. Grew up in Midtown.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
What was your? Where'd you go to school?
White Station High School.
Okay.
So there, at one time, I don't know if this is still the case, but when I was there, and for a while, the early thousands, late 90s to late thousands, I guess, or late aughts, White Station we always had the best basketball team in the state. And all the best players ended up, I think, at UT. So a bunch of the big players that UT's had have all been White Station folks.
Okay.
Now, that said, the only name I can remember is JP Prince, but there were a bunch of guys came from White Station.
Were you a band kid? Is that how you got into the music?
Yeah, I always did music. My family, my mom's side of the family is all musicians.
Okay.
So, yeah, always did band. Never did marching band, but I was able to do jazz band in high school. So I started doing that when I was in 9th grade and did it the whole time.
Okay. So 9th grade was your first year in organized music in school band?
No, I actually started it in 6th grade.
Okay.
The middle school.
Same here.
Yeah, the middle school was 7th and 8th grade, but they had a thing where if you wanted to do band, they had like an after school band.
Yeah.
That the 6th graders could come into. So
okay.
I started doing that.
Drums?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all percussion. That was all concert band stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Did percussion. And I always did classical percussion as well as drum set lessons.
Okay.
Growing up. So.
Why drums?
My uncle's a percussionist.
Okay.
And
is he the cool uncle?
He is a cool uncle.
Yeah.
And he's the only uncle I've got.
Okay. All right. Well then.
But yeah, he's great. And he's a phenomenal percussionist.
Right. Okay.
very much in the classical world, but he does do drum set as well. But yeah, so I did both growing up, and you asked a question in there that I'm not answering. I can't remember what the question was.
Well, it was just so it was always drums, and why?
So always drums. Okay. So yeah, always classic thing. Always beating on phone books and figuring out very basic polyrhythms, and then going to my mom and saying, "Oh, I figured this one thing out," and beating on a phone book and showing her what I figured out.
Right.
And so then when I was 10, she surprised me with a drum lesson, and so I've been playing ever since then.
Nice.
But I also I started when I was, I don't know, 5 or 6. There was a little beginner violin that somebody had, that we knew people that were string folks. And so I got a violin, but, newsflash, if you're not playing a violin well, it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
And so, you can be the other side of the house and all you hear is, that sort of noise. So that, my mom, I think very quickly was like, maybe we try something else. And
well, let's try drums instead. My God.
Yeah. Well, it went to piano.
Okay. There you go.
And we had a piano, so we went to that. But I wasn't interested enough in it. So I had some piano lessons and, tried it. And it never really stuck. And then, like I said, I was always just beating on stuff. And so it's like, all right, well, let's try drums. And that stuck. And then from then I was in, and I was, like, okay, I want to play music. I want to do this.
Yeah.
Then some other instruments came in, and so I ended up playing French horn for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I loved playing French horn. And the only reason why I didn't keep up with it was just because it was getting in the way of playing drums.
Right.
And then I also played trombone briefly, which is also great. I mean, both of those instruments it's funny, they're like opposite ends of the spectrum, but they can make some of the same sounds. And French horn is wild, and this is kind of getting into the weeds of how that instrument works, but it's the smallest mouthpiece for a brass instrument.
Right.
So the whole, to play it, your lips are real small inside the mouthpiece. But if you kind of get it right, you can make it go bah, like a trombone.
Yeah.
But also, because the French horn, like there's a single horn and a double horn. A double horn has there's normally 3 valves, like a trumpet or anything. A double horn has a thumb valve and adds about 3 feet of tubing to it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So a single horn's 12, I think it's 12 feet. Double horn's about 15 feet. I'm probably wrong about that, but that's what I remember.
Yeah. Close enough.
There's something in the physics of how the French horn works that you can basically do all of the wrong fingerings and still play the right notes if your mouth, your embouchure is correct.
Right.
So I was terrible at the fingerings and actually knowing where the notes were. And I would go to the lessons and I'd go and try to read music, and I would play everything correctly because I had a pretty good ear. And I knew what it was supposed to sound like, and my embouchure was pretty good. So I could be playing the wrong fingerings, but playing the right notes. And my teacher would watch me play my scales, and he would just start laughing. He'd be like, well, I mean, yes, that's correct. All of your scales, you're playing all the correct scales. You're playing all the right notes. All of your fingerings are wrong. It's like, you shouldn't be playing that correctly, but if you want to stick with this, you could be really good, because the hardest part, the embouchure, and actually knowing what it sounds like,
you got it.
You've got it.
Yeah.
You're just terrible at the fingerings. And like I said, after 2 or 3 years, it was kind of getting in the way of playing drums. So at that point, it's like, all right, are you going to keep doing lessons with something that you're only sort of lukewarm on or not? And so I stayed with drums. But was
Uncle the hero as far as, or the a big influence, or was there something else, or someone else, or something else?
Yes, he was one of the big influences. I had a few, but he was definitely one of the big ones. Like I said, he's mainly classical, does symphony work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he does play drum set as well. And I don't remember how old I was, probably 12 maybe. And he lives in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
And we were down visiting, and they were doing a Duke Ellington Pops concert sort of thing with the symphony. And he was going to play all the drum set parts. And he had some solo. And I remember that he played the most like smooth legato drum solo I'd ever heard. And at that point, I'd only been playing drums for 2 years, but I still thought drums were, Inagata Devita, which was another big influence on me. But just, that the whole time. And then here comes my uncle, and he plays this drum solo that's just like, and he's just playing these rolls on these toms. That was just really melodic, and where you couldn't tell where the notes were. You didn't hear da 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 da. You were just this like perfectly smooth thing. And I remember thinking, I've never heard drums sound like that. It's a drum. Yeah, it's a drum. It's supposed to go bang. What the hell's
going on? Yeah.
And so that always stuck with me. That it is possible for drums to be very melodic and just this like really smooth, shaped thing. And so then later, one of my, first records I was given, or when I first got a CD player or something like that, my former brother-in-law took it upon himself to start sort of sliding music my way and saying, all right, now you're into this. Now check this out. And I took a summer and I learned all 18 minutes and 32 seconds or whatever of Inagata Devita by putting the CD player next to me and turning it up full volume and just playing 18 minutes, going back, 18 minutes, going back.
Yeah.
So note for note, learned all of Inagata Devita. And was just, out of my mind happy, telling him about it. And he was like, great, here you go. And he slid me Dave Brubeck, the Time Out record, which has Take 5 on it, big famous drum solo. And the drummer, Joe Morello, is very famous for having incredible chops, like Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
And being able to do all of that crazy, just chop monster kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he does do that, but that particular solo on Take 5 is really sparse and it's really melodic. And every drum he hits, he's hitting it kind of so you can hear the sound of the drum, and leaves a lot of space in it. And I had just gotten through learning, bump, 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 bump. And here comes this solo that goes, boom, 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 and does that for like 3 minutes.
Right. But you're hearing all the overtones.
Yeah, you hear the whole thing. And I remember my brother-in-law saying, all right, now you've learned Inagata Devita, learn this. And then like, this doesn't sound like a drum solo to me, but okay. And so I started learning that. And then that started opening up this whole thing of, okay, here's another example of how drums can be really melodic. It's different from what I heard my uncle play, and that his was like long form or long tones. This was very sparse, but it had the same idea of being very melodic and not necessarily fitting in a prescribed amount of time. It was just here's a length of time with a shape to it.
Right.
And
that's interesting. I've never.
So those things shaped me in a pretty major way.
Yeah.
For better or worse, because I don't have a lot of the chops that a lot of other drummers have. Like I don't have like all the double bass stuff.
Yeah.
I can get there, and if my hands feel really great and I'm like really on it, I can do a big flashy drum solo.
Yeah.
But I gravitate much more toward like really melodic, sometimes really quiet, really either lots of rolls and doing the thing kind of like my uncle would do, or really sparse and just like, here is the tone. This is what the drum sounds like. And this is what these two drums sound like together. And this is this cymbal. I can get 6 different sounds out of this one cymbal playing in different places. And so just kind of a different avenue, but that's kind of been what's shaped me and how I think about playing.
Now, is that the stuff you were listening to as well? I mean, obviously you had to listen to it to learn it, but so you were listening more to concert-driven stuff or jazz-driven stuff?
At a point, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the stuff like for fun, well, all of it was for fun.
Sure.
But, the Doors and Pink Floyd were the two bands initially that it was like, I love the way these drums sound. I love the way these guys are playing.
Okay.
I like this music. This is just what I'm going to go home and listen to. And then, jazz started to come in, and I started thinking more about how jazz drumming tends to be a bit more melodic and tends to be more based on sort of a shape.
Yeah.
And I stuck with jazz, and that's, ended up going to school here and getting a degree in it, and still play a lot of jazz.
You mentioned Buddy Rich, and it's funny that you brought that up because I saw an article. I don't know. I read so much damn stuff. I can't remember when it was, but it wasn't that long ago. All these who's of the rock genre, and really all these drummers were talking about how it's like there's Buddy Rich and there's everybody else. I mean, and these are guys like, I want to say Neil Peart was quoted as saying that, but a lot of these guys that I can't remember the list, but it was a who's who of drummers. It'd be like Steve Vai talking about how there's Chet Atkins and there's everybody else,
right?
Yeah, whatever.
Totally.
For example, or like all the jazz trumpeters of all time, it's Louis Armstrong and everybody else.
Yes,
right. That kind of talk.
Yep.
Is that something you might agree with?
Absolutely. And
I knew who Buddy Rich was because of Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he would come on and play with the band, and then take this just wild, madman, crazy drum solo. But I was not familiar with any of, his recordings or anything like that. It was just like, who's this crazy guy on these drums? You know?
So this is not a real anecdote, but the way I sort of described it when someone asked me this question, or when I'm defending Buddy Rich, is in the pantheon of jazz drummers, or drummers in general, but we'll stick with jazz for a moment. Sort of at the top is Elvin Jones and Tony Williams. Tony was Miles Davis' drummer. Elvin was John Coltrane's drummer. And then, of course, they played with everybody else, too. But that's, those two dudes, Elvin and Tony, and then Miles and John Coltrane are like, that's, it's the top. That's always considered the top. And I could pretty much guarantee that if Elvin and Tony had posters on the wall, it would be a Buddy Rich. Right. And that's kind of how I think about it is, I don't know that to be true. I don't know anything about any of that. It's an anecdote I've made up.
Yeah.
But I think any drummer would be hard pressed to not want to have a poster of Buddy on the wall.
Yeah.
There are other guys you may like more. You may gravitate toward more, but he's undeniable. And yes, he 100% sits at the top of the pyramid.
And would it be fair to say, I'm not a drummer, but would it be fair to, like the other two guys you named, okay, are they at the top of that heap if they don't play with two of the most difficult to please musicians of all time? Maybe not. Because if you mentioned Miles Davis and Coltrane when you mentioned those guys,
yeah, you
don't mention anybody when you mention Buddy Rich. Hell, I don't know who he played with. I just know that everybody thinks he's the best damn drummer of all time.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting point.
You know what I'm saying? It's like he's associated with,
right.
These guys are associated with these guys,
So I think often you include Miles and Coltrane when you say Elvin and Tony, mostly because everybody's heard of Miles and Coltrane. Not everybody's heard of Tony Williams and Elvin Jones.
Right.
So I think a lot of times it's easier to say, here's the way in. Not, if you're not into jazz, you've still heard of Miles Davis. On their own, Tony and Elvin, I think absolutely it doesn't matter who they would have been playing with, because I'm sure there are people who could write whole dissertations on how Miles wouldn't have been, or his second quintet, the one with Tony Williams, would not have been that quintet without Tony. So you could say actually it was Tony the whole time. Coltrane, you could probably say the exact same thing of his quartet wouldn't have been the quartet unless Elvin had been doing what he was doing. So
they didn't just show up with these guys as newbies then. They were already top cats. They had something. They were amazing dudes who would have done amazing things with whoever they were playing with, and did do amazing things with everyone they played with. But to this day, the guys that have the best hands in the world, you watch them play a solo, and then you go back and you watch a video of Buddy Rich from 1960, and it's every bit as amazing, if not more so. That's what I'm saying.
And, and then in this is a true story or a true anecdote. There's a real famous bass player named Ray Brown, who's probably, if not the top of the pyramid of jazz bass players, is, second to the top. And
so who, Mingus or somebody like that?
No, he'd be above Mingus. I don't even know who would be above him, but maybe someone could say, don't forget about this guy.
You're right.
There's somewhere there's like a famous story that people ask, well, who's your favorite drummer to play with? Because he's played with everybody. And there was a guy named Ed Thigpen that was in his trio forever. Currently, the guy living named Jeff Hamilton, who's probably the greatest living straight ahead jazz drummer. He was in Ray Brown's trio. Ray could play with anyone he wanted to. And if he calls, you say yes, And someone asked him who his favorite drummer is, and he said Buddy Rich. Okay. And Buddy Rich is famous for playing big bands. Mm-hmm. But Ray Brown played with him in a trio. And so, that to me, that says all kinds of stuff that you think, okay, well, Buddy, he did the big band thing. He was this big, flashy guy who did this thing over here. But all these other guys were playing small group, like quintets, quartets, trios. And then you come to find out that Ray Brown's like, I'll take Buddy.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about. I mean, Mike and I and I'm sure you are, I'm totally against who's the best ever shit. It's all relative, but it's not often you get a Michael Jordan in the music world where most people say, and that's probably not a good example since I don't necessarily think George's the greatest, but either way, you know what I'm saying? Most people say that guy's the greatest, and you don't get that with a lot of instrumentalists. I mean, especially guitar. Everybody wants to throw out Hendrix out there, but come on.
Yeah.
There's guys that, it happened in, Dobro, Jerry Douglas. There's like Jerry and everybody else. It was for a long time that way. But Buddy Rich, I never did think about,
It's interesting. Like I say, I never thought about it either, but, I just always remembered I wasn't in that world. I wasn't from that world. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about that world.
Really, I just word of mouth. Being around jazz guys and stuff.
What is the importance? And I don't know why I've never asked this question, but I'll ask you. What is the importance, and why does that's the right way to ask it. Why is it so important that why does a better bass player make you a better drummer, or a better drummer makes you a better bass player? Is that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do you get there? I mean, like, how do those two instruments actually almost become one?
Well, you're almost answering your own question.
Okay.
It is the symbiosis. Like they kind of have to become one in order for it to work. So, I mean, this is also kind of getting into the weeds of a lot of stuff, but you hear people talk about beat placement.
Yeah.
And this guy's real front side of the beat. This guy's real back side of the beat, whatever. And then genres have...
This guy couldn't find the beat with both hands.
Exactly, yeah. Or like, this guy's beat was this big,
Yeah.
When a bass player and drummer have a connection of whatever it is, then that beat becomes kind of an undeniable thing.
Gotcha.
So, and it's a weird thing because it doesn't necessarily mean that they're playing the same beat together. It means that the way they play together and the way that they handle the beat has something.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's all in the weeds. It's all just floating out somewhere.
Sure.
But the thing is, you can feel it.
Right. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
That was a great word for it.
Both of you guys, and as I will look to you, especially as being, in the front and singing and playing, when the bass and drums are locked in together, or even if they're creating some tension with where they're putting the beat, if what they're doing is a force or is creating a tension that you're going to play with, you as a singer have, like, I would assume that gives you a level of confidence or control to be able to say, like, all right, I'm going to sit way back and I'm going to be real lazy with these words because I know the beat's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it gives you room to just be real slinky, or the opposite, and just be like, nope, I'm gonna get right up on it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna push everything. And that the bass and drums are just gonna hang back and just keep it right in this one spot. And then I say, like, the beat gets real big. So if you're strumming, or you're playing piano, or you're playing your chords, and you're adding the texture and everything, if you know that the beat is this big and that you can put your pattern anywhere in here and it's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that just makes it, like I said, that's when things start to become undeniable.
Yeah. When it's as a singer, I completely understand what you're saying and agree with it, because then you can really work on styling and or phrasing and diction to where people, can understand what you're saying when you sing.
Yeah.
You mean you can work on just your part and not have to worry about everybody else?
Right.
That's the thing about being...
Or you can stretch.
Yeah.
And take some chances.
Yes.
Or do some vocal aerobics if you so choose.
And what you're both saying, being a bass player as a secondary instrument, it's all about foundation.
Yeah. And
you're taking up the same sonic space for the most part, with the bass and the drums. Plus, it's your motor. It's almost like a damn assembly line. You're the conveyor belt. If that ain't fucking working, there ain't nothing working. Can't put anything else on top of it. It's just like, if those guys aren't locked up, the rest of it sucks. There's no way to fix it.
Right.
And that is what it is. It's just having that rhythm section to where everybody else can do what they're supposed to do. Just
I think
paraphrase what y'all said, but basically
coming from the bluegrass world and from, more of a, and not just classic country, but just a classic, more of a classic approach, like even in rock and roll or blues or country but especially with the bluegrass, to me, on, say, like we're playing something very traditional, straight ahead, traditional, bluegrass. I wouldn't even care if my bass player hit the right note. Right. As long as the placement was where it was supposed to be.
Yep.
Like you fat finger something, or you drop back to, half step too far or whatever.
Yeah.
But rhythmically, it's gotta be there.
Well, and then
drives me nuts if it's not. And
the chop.
I also think that, and I think this is one place where people like and we'll just say, I'll say, but like in playing country music in more of a traditional sort, when it's not there, even the untrained ear knows something was missing.
Something's off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
To where, we've played how many thousands of shows between us that, one obviously could be better than the other, or one was worse than the other. And on either side of that coin, you can have somebody come up to you and say, man, you guys sounded better tonight than we've ever heard you.
Right.
And you're just sitting there thinking, this sumbitch over here couldn't fucking fall out of the boat and hit the water, or whatever.
Yeah.
You smile and you say thank you and you move on. But when it's rhythmically, when it's not there, boy, it feels like a hole big enough that you could drive a Jeep through it, And
it feels like work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in bluegrass, like I was saying, the chop, the other side of the coin is the mandolin or the fiddle. Whoever's going to do the chop
on the backbeat.
Yeah. So if you don't have that give and take, which for me, or I think of that as kind of being the same thing as bass and drums.
Sure.
Where if that's not working together, if that's not two sides of the engine or whatever, then it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think too, to try to answer how does it make you better? I think when you play as a drummer, if I play with a bass player that is like knows what they're doing and is solid in what they're doing, even if they play the beat in a different place than I do, or if we get to an end of a phrase and I want to push it and they want to lean back or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that it can make me better. It's like the more you listen and the more like you trust who you're playing with, and you sort of start to hear like, oh, okay, that person's going to go here. And then, all right, so I can make a decision of, am I going to jump with them, or am I going to let that person run for a minute and then let that tension build and come back. And that's a really hard thing to learn.
Yeah. Because your first instinct is to change it.
Yeah, it's to chase it.
It's the first. Yeah, I mean, so the other night we're playing. We got Clint Mullican playing bass with us the other night.
Oh yeah,
which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we
probably played more gigs with Clint than anyone.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I like him personally a lot, as well as his chops.
Yeah,
his actual bass playing.
It was so fun, man.
But we played, the old Don Williams. We played Tulsa Time, and we've all played that shit a million times,
Yeah,
and Clint put it in this real kind of.
When we started playing it, kind of
with a little stink on it, and a little greasy.
Yeah, no, he's got the little side to side.
Yeah,
he finds it. Yeah,
it's swampy.
Yeah,
it was slower, and we were. Yeah, it was.
But my first instinct was to get heavy handed and get it where I want it.
Yeah,
and push it a little bit. And like you're saying, that's a hard thing to learn. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to give it, at least the verse.
It kicked ass too, didn't it?
Yeah. and
it's the best we've ever played.
It's the best we ever played it. And here's why it was so good for me, because I totally didn't flub. I was able to say everything like the guy on the 6 o'clock news and sing it that way.
Yep.
And it was so much better. I wasn't rushing, trying to, or I didn't fall behind. I didn't do the wheelie and fall behind it enough that I had to catch up and put everything and squeeze it into the space. It was just so much better. But that initial reaction is to, no, we're not putting that there. We got to have this here. This, and that's interesting you brought that up, because it was a perfect example of it for me.
And that was a good,
specifically
good fresh example, because I remember that and you kind of trying to push it, but we held it there, and it really wasn't that too under tempoed either. It was fine. It was just,
well, sometimes in a live setting too, you want to, and I've learned this a lot more over the last year with just different song selection stuff, to where, instead of beating them over the head with it, it's like, no, just let it do what it's going to do, and, remove yourself out of the way of it enough to figure out where it's going to go the best.
Yeah.
And then come in. I've always said that too. Like sometimes, especially in that kind of genre of music or in the bluegrass world, it's, you start together, you stop together. Everything's got to be together. Well, in some of this stuff, you should just let it feel its way out to where it's going to be. You don't have to come in right away. You can set the groove, set the tone, set the mood, of what you're shooting for, that this song actually delivers. And it's, it definitely helps me as a singer and being in the front. Hey, good guys and good gals alike. If you're looking for somewhere to go to get your hair did, then look no further than the Chop Shop Hair Studio. Our longtime friend and supporter, Cindy Lou, opened this spot located in Knoxville's very own Happy Holler back in 2010. Chop Shop Hair Studio offers a variety of services, including facial waxing, accessories, tools, and a complete line of men's and women's products, along with essential oils. A lover and supporter of the musical arts here locally and abroad, Cindy has a small stage with stringed instruments and offers discounts to guests if they are willing to play and or sing a song. The Chop Shop Hair Studio is a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, and 100% pure style, just like our dear friend and owner, Cindy Lou. The hours are Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also visit thechopshophairstudio.com and or call 865-525-4240 to book your next visit to go and get your hair did. Located at 1206 North Central Street, Knoxville, Tennessee, Chop Shop Hair Studios. Stop by and tell them McGill and Jamie sent you to have one more for the good guys.
Yeah, and I had...
So we're talking about Vegas. Change the subject.
Yeah, and I had this one guy after I went and had the vegan lunch came to me and it's like, hey, I'm going to go on this big hike. And I was too wiped out to go do a big hike, but it was...
I'm always too wiped out to do a big hike.
But yeah, in that moment though, it's just like, oh, you can do whatever you want here. And it's that's how to do Vegas, is to come in and just decide, I want this kind of trip. And boom, you can do it. It's all there.
And that, listen, it's the greatest city on earth. Now, it's my second favorite city to visit. I like New York better, but I'm a Yankees fan. So,
ooh, I was going to say, I'm waiting for it.
Jesus. Anyway.
Are you from New York?
No, I'm from here.
How did you end up a Yankees fan?
Well, I grew up with one of those big satellite dishes, and
he choked to death at a...
And that's what we got. And then I ended up buying a New York pizza restaurant.
Right.
You know? But that's what we got. You know, we got New England Sports Network, and we got Red Sox and Yankees, and I wasn't going to fucking watch the Red Sox. Hell, I knew I was raised better than that. So, anyway, Yankees fan. Dad was a Yankees fan. The reason Dad was a Yankees fan is because it's radio only, and that's about all that got played on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't 4 million stations and XM and all that shit. But it's just like you were saying, talking about it's a city that never sleeps on both, on both coast, not really coast, but you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. New York and Vegas. And a lot of people, that we know, they're like, oh, you don't want to go out there and get, it's Sin City. Okay, yeah, fine and dandy, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
And what they're doing, especially with the athletics and whatever else, the casinos are starting to figure out,
the Raiders.
These kids like to spend
the
fucking money too.
Is a Raider.
How can I get kids here?
Right.
And get the parents to spend money on the kids? So you're starting to see a transition into, okay, from the hedonism, getting porn on the streets with the flippers, which they've pretty much done away with now, all the way over to damn Las Vegas Disney. It's you can start to see that the big money's starting to take over there. I wouldn't be surprised to see some major, huge theme park or something like that. I mean, if you could take your kids to Vegas too, and you could have a chaperoned, there's a business idea. When they get this theme park open, imaginary theme park, having a chaperone tour for kids, like they do on the cruises.
Yeah.
Where mom and dad can go do whatever the hell they want, catch a show or whatever, make a fortune. $300 a kid gets admittance to the park. They pay it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd pay $300 so I could go watch. Hell, I'm already paying $500 to go see Cirque du Soleil. Might as well pay another $3.
Yeah.
So they don't have to go. I either got to buy them a ticket and tell them to shut the fuck up, or I can send them to the. I'll tell you right now, we retired in Vegas. So, and the other thing about Nevada, here's my sales pitch to move to Las Vegas. They don't have a state income tax. And they will be the very last state to get one. Population versus revenue. Revenue, population.
Yep.
Ain't going to happen. They're not going to run people off from gambling by saying, hey, if you work here, we're going to fuck you 10% more or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, you can do anything you want. I've been there a lot. It's been a lot. Been to the Hoover Dam multiple times. Spent a lot of time off the strip, not downtown, but like off the strip in places that you probably shouldn't go unarmed. And great food, one of the best food towns. It's very underrated from a food standpoint. Now, I don't mean the Gordon Ramsays and all. I mean, that's fine. I'm talking about local.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of it's fantastic. That's how I heard about the Vegination place, or however you pronounce it.
One of the podcasts I love is the Penn Jillette podcast from Penn and Teller. He's got a podcast called Penn Sunday School. And one of the things I love about his podcast is that he's a total nut job, but in a great way. And he talks a lot about just.
Go ahead.
He talks a lot about like show business, and it's people kind of look down their nose at Vegas, and you're going to go do a show in Vegas. You're going to go
sell your soul.
Yeah, go to the thing. And
damn right I am. $100 million.
Well, and that's kind of one of the things that he's sort of talked about in his podcast, and when he talks about being in show business, and actually saying, like, actually, this is where you can come and do real show business, where you've got crews, you've got lights, you've got every aspect that goes into making a show as good as it can possibly be. You have the best dudes in Vegas, and they're putting on the best shows. And a magic show, just using that as an example. It's easy to kind of, like I said, look down your nose or kind of laugh at like, oh, it's a magic show. And then if you sit and think about it, all anyone cares about is entertainment. And if you're going into, whether it's music or magic or Cirque du Soleil or whatever, you're going because you want a show, and you want to sit and watch people do things you can't do, and do it really fucking well. And it seems like that's a place where there's everybody there. The mindset is, this is fucking show business, and we're going to do this as well as we possibly can. It's going to be 100% every single time, no matter what. And there's beauty in that.
And for people like us and what we do, being musicians or whatever, it's a fucking the promised land, because you've got all these damn places that got money to burn, buddy. To get you to sit there and entertain somebody while they spend another $200 in the slot machine and another $100 on drinks. And
well, and you think about it, the crews are all pros. And just think about it from like the artist side of things. They're coming anyway. You don't have to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about all the overhead. You don't have to worry about you don't have to wear 10 different hats. You don't have to have 10 different people, production manager, stage manager, a tour manager. That pie those slices get considerably less in numbers, and again, you've got how many million coming there as a destination,
Right.
as a retreat, as a vacation spot, as a party town, as a sports town now. I mean,
it went from nothing.
It's a different kind of deal as being an entertainer, I would think. Just because, you could, there's an opportunity there for you to get, I would think, I don't know any of this, but I would think there would be an opportunity for you to get a little bored, with maybe doing the 2 shows a night or the same thing.
Yeah.
But still, your every amenity, you're not dealing with some cranky ass sound man, somewhere, Lou's back there. He's got you. He knows what.
Yep.
The lighting guy knows what, the stage hands, know if you like your amp plugged in upside down or what the fuck ever,
Right.
You got the best of both worlds. And at the end of the day, boys, that little girl at the teller, that young lady at the tellers at the bank, don't give a shit where your money came from.
Yeah.
She's going to put it in your account.
Right.
One way or the other. So, I mean, there's a beauty to it for sure.
And this, I'm going to say, ties into what we were talking about playing the song a little bit slower. So playing the same thing over and over, or doing 2 shows a night, or doing a residency, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time, I think, coming from a jazz world, where my viewpoint on playing was, yes, rehearsing is great. And I do like rehearsing, but I always wanted the show to be somewhat off the cuff.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Let's make some magic, whatever cliche you want to throw in there. At some point, well, I know exactly when it was. It was when I was doing a 6-month residency playing 7 nights a week. Even though we weren't playing the same songs every night, we were playing every single night, doing 3 sets a night. And there's a point at which you start to see a beauty in, like, how perfect can I play this?
Yeah.
And
how effortless can I play it?
And if you can get there, then everything opens up.
Yeah.
And you feel like, if things are less rehearsed, you leave more room for whatever. And I think it's kind of the opposite in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think really the freedom comes when everything is just so perfect and you can execute everything so well, then you can just do whatever. And the reason why I say it ties into playing a little bit slower is, and this is actually something I learned from my grandfather, who was an organist, a pipe organist, kind of big touring organist at one point. I remember him talking about playing these big, crazy organ concertos and playing in a big hall where there's like 10 seconds of reverb and all this stuff. And he would have these students come in and they would play these incredibly hard pieces lightning fast, just technique out the ass, just insane. But as a listener, in a room with 10 seconds of reverb, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, it just jumbles together.
So sometimes things are faster when it's slower. So some of these organ pieces, if you play slower, if you play back on it so that every note can be heard, it sounds like you're playing 1,000,000 miles an hour because you can actually hear everything you're playing.
Yeah.
And so I tie that in with what you were saying of, it doesn't matter the venue does matter just because of the sound in the room. But I talk about this with the Stickley Trio sometimes, because everything that we do is really technical. And it is amazing to play some things really fast. But sometimes if we slow some things down so that every single note has the same value, and every single note can be heard, we may walk off the stage and be like, I felt a little bit slow. And then you realize that the person listening was like, I've never heard someone play all those notes so accurately and the time be so great. And you guys did everything on a dime. And it's like, oh, okay. So actually, if you can get to that place, whether it's by repetition, by playing 7 nights a week, or by slowing down or whatever, if you can get to that place where everything is perfectly executed, then everything, doors swing wide open. Yeah. And do whatever you want from there.
You can manipulate it any which way you want. Yeah. At that point, when you got your chops up so well that you're not even having to, and a lot of times when we're playing, we don't think about a lot of stuff, but but like when the red light comes on, you start thinking about stuff, just like studio time or if they're recording you or you're doing a live recording or, you get, it gets a little psychosomatic. You get in your head, and you're like, no, wait a minute. I've done this 2 million times. Right. This ain't, and I've only got to do it for 3 minutes and 18 seconds, Yeah. Which is challenging enough. But if you're on it and you've studied and you've worked and you I agree 100%. You can really show out. Right. If you want. And then another thing too is like with singing and playing, kind of when you first start, and even as you've been playing or singing a while, you got to leave room to go somewhere. You can't just come out and do everything that and do every vocal trick or every percussion lick or every piano fill or whatever. Yeah. That within the first minute of the song. Right. You don't have anywhere to go.
Or even the first set list for that matter.
Yeah, for sure.
Foreplay is important.
Yeah. But I think about it a lot when I'm singing something because, I'll try to sing it as straight as I can and put something in somewhere just a little bit along the way. And then maybe by the last chorus or the last verse, if I'm really super comfortable with it, like what we're talking, then I stretch out and do some things, or I change up the melody,
which makes it very interesting when I try to sing the harmony parts.
Yes, it does. It does.
Although the other night,
I tried to stay really straight.
You really did. It was pretty good. I was able to.
Well, we worked on it here,
and I could hear
on a few of those things.
He did a really good job. I mean, we could hear. I had him.
We worked on a few of those things here, and I was just like, I could really throw him out in the weeds here, but I'm gonna stay. Well. And that's especially important, especially if you're singing harmonies and stuff. I always said the hardest harmony singing job in the world would have to have been with Willie.
Oh, God.
As much as his phrasing and his timing's just all over the place. It'd be like,
Impossible.
Where would you?
Yeah. He doesn't have a whole lot of harmony stuff in his work, though. Yeah. He like Blue Eyes Crying in Rain, just that one line, man. Yeah. It's just like, that's it.
But he may sing it 13 different ways.
Yeah. Surely they got to talk about it. Of course, I guess if you've been playing with him for 60 years, you probably know.
That's true, too.
By the way he's holding his shoulder, what he's going to do. Yeah. Some shit like that. If you're talking about talent level, man, I'd say Vegas is second only to Broadway. And even if it's second, I don't know. I can remember.
There's people there,
dude.
We
went and saw this Avenue Q, which is a musical.
Yeah,
you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I know a little bit about it. It's like a Muppet thing, right?
Yeah, like X-rated Muppets.
Yeah,
it's off Broadway. But
well, now
still,
we're talking.
Yeah. Man, they stand up there in a black T-shirt and jeans or whatever and hold that damn thing. There ain't no, they're meant to be kind of, in the shadows or whatever. But what blew me away about it is the way they projected their voice.
Yeah.
And how good they were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you forgot about them in about 30 seconds and those Muppets took over. But just the vocal, but, like at that particular show, this was in 2007 when I saw that. But I've catch myself just watching the damn pit, or watching them play or whatever. You can't have pre-recorded music and none of that.
Right.
The Union, Cirque du Soleil and all that too. It's all live. Except for some of the Beatles shows and stuff. They're playing, obviously, the Beatles, but they're doing a lot of live stuff too. But man, I just sit there and watch them play. I'm like, my God. I mean, like I said, 2 shows a night and that damn precise and good. And it's not like it's an orchestra full of people. It's like 7 of them. Like Avenue Q had 4 keyboard players doing all the parts, I remember they all had Kurzweils. Oh, I remember that. And then they had, drummer and the bass and all that stuff. But man, I'm just blown away at how good they are. Of course, talking about being precise, they don't put up with no, improvised shit on those shows. They want you to play it.
Oh, yeah.
Just like this, or we'll find somebody better than you that's probably out sweeping.
Right.
So you got to, oops. But I think next, talent-wise, it's on par, certainly, with Broadway.
Yeah.
And it's trying to be, I think it's a good thing. I think Vegas, there's a lot can be said for the economic system they have.
Oh, no, for sure.
I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off of these of performers and off the office show business, knowing that, hey, I'm not the only moneymaker around here.
Yeah.
I am in the middle of a $10 billion casino that's racking in $100 million a day. And if I don't fill this place up one night, does it matter? No.
It's again, going back to, the difference between having to tour and wear all those hats versus having all those hats worn by other folks. And you have to wear one, you have to entertain.
Yep.
And people ask me a lot, and of course I'm not in some way, I mean, you're not comparing it to Vegas, obviously, but in some way, doing that gig up in Gatlinburg, 200 dates a year for so long, and people's like, well, you're so natural on the mic. You're able to, you're able to overcome anything that you're doing because you're comfortable, and well, that's what it's from.
Right.
I mean, it's from repetition.
Yeah.
It's from seeing that same shit all the time and having enough confidence level in it that you can get up there and just be yourself.
Yeah. That's kind of the, one of the, I referenced Penn and Teller, but that's one of the things I kind of like about how they do things and why I sort of hold that as a something to apply to how I do things, which is, when a lot of their tricks, a lot of things that they do, they tell you what they're doing. Like, they're famous for giving away magic secrets, all that kind of stuff. And kind of the whole point is to say, it isn't magic. We're just really fucking good.
Yeah.
And it's, and then that kind of becomes its own magic because you look at someone who can do the cups and balls with clear cups where you can see everything.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, I know how it's done. It's like, great, do it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, how do they do it again? and it's, and that, I think that applies to everything is getting on the drums, getting on the mic, getting on whatever.
Yeah.
And you can be supernatural, but it's the beauty comes when you're so good at it that someone knows exactly what you're doing and is like, if it still says, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I can see every single thing that just happened. I understand every single word that just happened. That drummer was doing nothing but paradiddles, and I can't do it. I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. So you hand them a guitar and say, grab you a D chord there and sing me a hit song.
Yeah.
Or, sit down here at the kid. Show me what I was doing, but, I just think that there's my playing and my abilities from doing that many shows, my chops were off the freaking chart.
Oh, yeah.
For what I do.
Yep.
There was no way I could have ever gotten any better. I mean, I really felt that deep within me, like there's no way I could get any better than this right now. I've told this story before, and I'll make this one real brief, but I played a blue plate with Wade Hill one time, and Wade was one of those old school guys that he'd write you letters.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'd send you stuff in the mail, mail you a cassette. Here's my new stuff.
Yeah.
Give it a listen, and stuff like that. Well, not long after Wade had passed away, I was going through some stuff, and I was in here one night, and I had a big box full of crap. I was trying to purge to get everything down to where I could have a place for everything and still have my cool stuff around, and fill this place up. And I found a cassette of doing a live blue plate with Wade back in the day. And Wade was filling in a lot for me on banjo and stuff. And Barry Reed was playing bass. And there's some stuff on there I didn't know I could do. I mean, like, I listened to it and I'd be like, what did I do right there? And some of it at breakneck speed. Some of it was in singing. Some of it was in slower stuff, setups or playing behind him to push his solos out further out front, Mm-hmm. And I just was blown away, not only by obviously his playing and, remembrance and mourning his passing, but yeah, there was stuff I was doing on guitar and I was just like, what did I just do right there? But that's why was because you did it without thinking. Your fingers knew, oh, we'll jump right here, you know, and it's, but
well, I mean, that same thing when that residency I was talking about, by the end of 6 months doing that gig was, I mean, this probably isn't that uncommon, but I felt like you could put out 20 drumsticks in front of me and blindfold me, and I could pick up each one blindfolded and say, that's the stick I hold in my right hand. That's the stick I hold in my left hand. It was just like so dialed in. I was just like, I could all the same sticks, same brand, same model, same everything. I could pick them all up and be like, yep, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah. Sensory overload.
Yeah, no, it was great though. I loved it. I missed playing other gigs at that point, but man, yeah, things got good. And I've taken a lot from that gig. That's kind of where a lot of that, all right, how perfect can you make this?
Yeah.
Well,
So you played in high school.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. You in Memphis. You're graduating high school. Did you have an offer to come here? Had you heard about UT? How did you get here? How did you decide that this was where you needed to be for college and
so
further your craft, if you will?
Well, this is the story. Here comes the big story. So, between my junior and senior year of high school, I moved to Boston for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for
Jamie's favorite place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll get back to that because I was in Boston in 2004.
I grew up a Celtics fan. I know it's weird. So did you, but not the Red Sox. Go ahead. Sorry.
And not the fucking Yankees. Just remember that.
Yeah, that right there.
Go ahead, Hunter. Pipe down, would you? Man's trying to get it.
As you always say, they gave me a microphone. They gave me a DAW to edit with.
Okay. That's one for Jamie. 0 for Mike.
So, the pipe organ at the church I grew up in was being restored. And my mom worked at that church. And I remember being a junior in high school. And one night she says, hey, the pipe organ builders, we're all going to go out to eat. They're really interesting folks. I think you'd like them. You should come out and have dinner with us and come meet these guys. And I remember thinking, pipe organ builders? What kind of people are these? Who the hell are these people? But I, went out to dinner with them. Instead of hanging out with my girlfriend, went out to dinner and hung out with these guys. And they were cool as shit and really interesting. And I hadn't met or hung out with anybody that was, like somewhere between a craftsman and tradesman and all that kind of stuff. I was just hanging out in my own little high school world. So they came down to Memphis a few times to work on the organ because it's, restoring a pipe organ is like a year-long process generally.
I can only imagine. I mean,
yeah, you go down or you go to where it is. And if it's a full restoration, then you're taking every single pipe out. You're taking every part of it out. And there's so many guts to it and there's wiring and there's all kinds of stuff. So they came down like every 6 weeks from Boston and, that's where the shop was. It was in Boston. That's how I got there. So I got to know these guys and hang out with them or would hang out with them when they'd come into town. And then the summer before my senior year of high school, the owner of the shop said, hey, you're interested in coming up to the Northeast for music school for college. Why don't you come up and work in the shop for a summer and just hang out in Boston? Because at the time I really wanted to go to Berkeley. So why don't you just move up here, work for me for the summer? We got tons of work. You can just be in Boston and see what it's like. See if you like living up here.
Yeah.
You can live with me. We got room, all this stuff. It's like, okay, great. So I did that.
So were these the Boston folks that said Boston or did they say Boston?
There's a mix.
Tommy or Tommy.
See, that all depends on the context.
Yeah. I'm just.
Chicago's the same way.
Yeah.
There's most people in Chicago, most of the A's are flat.
Yeah.
Like you would say like practice. Oh, I got band practice.
Yeah.
But then you'd say Chicago.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Boston's the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boston. A lot of Boston.
Oh, for the love of God.
I used to be able to drop into a Bostonian accent. I can't really do it much anymore, but there was one of the guys was, born and bred there, just blue collar carpenter, worked in the shop. His name was Mike. And the first time I met him, I thought he was British. his accent was so thick, and I'd never heard anyone say, hey, Hunter, come over here. And I was like, what did you just say? Hunter, come here, Hunter. And I never heard anyone pronounce my name with the T. In the South, it's Hunter.
Yeah.
Hunter. I was like, are you talking to me? What's happening? So anyway, I go up for the summer.
Get over here.
Guys are great. Working in the shop was great. I kind of fell in love with Boston at the time. And
what year would this have been?
This was 2002.
Okay.
While I was there, I kind of decided that I didn't want to go to Berkeley because I kind of learned a little bit more about it and how they do things, and decided that isn't actually the direction I wanted to go, which, that may or may not have been a good decision. Well, I'm happy with my life now, so all things worked out great. But there's a lot of good that you can get out of Berkeley. There's a lot of amazing players and a lot of opportunities that come from going there. But I decided that wasn't the direction I wanted to go. And then I got really interested in New England Conservatory, which is also up there. And it turns out that my drum teacher in Memphis went to New England Conservatory.
Okay.
So
a little familiarity.
Yeah. So I decided, okay, I'm going to redirect and I'm going to work toward going to conservatory instead of this music school, which is kind of a whole different level of things. And so I spent my senior year working toward that, but also New York and just wanted to get out of Memphis, wanted to go to the Northeast. I loved it up there. It was great. So all throughout my senior year of high school, I'm taking trips up to New York. I'm going to visit schools. I'm going places, and I applied to NEC, New England Conservatory, and never even heard anything back. No rejection, no nothing.
Yeah.
And my drum teacher, I think, even tried to reach out and, as an alumnus, what the hell happened here? And nothing.
Right. It was over.
Over. Not even started. And but I'd gone a bunch to New York, and so I applied to the City College of New York. And one of the really cool things that City College does is they don't have they only have a few music faculty, but their thing is that you can take from anyone in New York, because they know that anyone that's going to come to school in New York is probably because they want to follow somebody, a teacher of some sort. So as long as the person will accept you as a student, they're your teacher. That's who you take lessons from, even if they teach at a different school.
Right.
And City College is really affordable for a New York school, but they don't have any room and board or any housing. So, it is kind of designed for people that live there. It's supposed to be an easy school, or not an easy, but accessible for folks who live there. So I got on the very early days of Craigslist and started looking for potential roommates or anyone that was looking for a roommate. And I found a guy who was from Nashville, who was going to be going to City College and getting a master's in German, and had a bachelor's in German and music. And German was the language I took in high school and the language I was interested in. And he's from Nashville. So I wrote to this guy saying, hey, I'm from Memphis. I've studied German and I want to be a musician. You're from Nashville. You studied German and have also done music. What do you think? And he said, perfect. Yes, I need a roommate. This is great. I've got no problem with this. Yeah, I'm a master's student, but I've got no problem. I'll start looking and I'll send you whatever I can find.
Yeah.
And so we're, emailing every day. And now we're getting into, May, June, and I'm accepted to City College. I've already said yes. I've sent in money. the whole thing, or the deposit at least, I guess. And mid-June, I get an email saying, hey man, really sorry, but I had some friends that needed a fourth roommate. And I had to say yes, I needed a place, and I was striking out, finding something for us. Really sorry, but I've got to do this other thing. And of course, at the time, I was, like, you motherfucker. But looking back, it was like, yeah, of course, if someone hands you an opportunity to take it. But now I'm out the deposit, or my parents are out the deposit. Ugh. And now I have nowhere to live, and I'm running out of time. And my boss from the organ company calls. I guess my mom maybe talked to him or something. He calls and says, so how things looking? And I was like, not good. And he goes, well, Eric, one of the guys in the shop, needs a roommate. You want to take a year off and come work for a year in Boston, save up some money. And if you want to decide you want to go to school in Boston, maybe you can establish some residency. Maybe you can, kind of replant yourself up here and just try again next year. And in the meantime, you'll have some money in the bank. You'll get some life experience, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, great. So I took a year off, moved up there. And that year in Boston, I learned more about life, everything, than I had ever learned in college. Because, in Boston and in the Northeast, things like heat come from oil. In the South, we have electricity, or we have natural gas, or whatever. And in some places you may have oil, but not much. Up there, everything's oil. And so I didn't know that the oil tank runs dry. And to be fair, there were 3 of us in this house, and we all took a different utility, and they gave me the heat. I was like, great. So I'm paying the heating bill every month, doing a great job. One day in February, the shower's running cold, and my roommates are, Hunter? And yeah, what's up? Why is the shower cold? I'm like, I don't know. Did you turn the hot water on? Did you go check the tank? For what? Oil? And so I'm, I don't know. So I go down and hit the tank, and it goes bong. I'm like, what's it supposed to sound like? And they're like, not like bong. It's supposed to go thud when it's full of oil.
Yeah.
Not supposed to sound hollow. Oh, okay. Well, all right, well, I'll call them and get some more oil. And they said, yeah, that's $500. You got to refill the tank, and you fucked up. We need you to pay for that. And I was like, what? So I had to pay because it was my fault. And there was no way for me to know.
Yeah.
I'd never.
Well, other than a slight heads up from some fucking body.
Yeah.
But of course they didn't know either, probably.
Yeah. They'd been living there. They just thought, of course, And I was like, this isn't how we have heat in the South. I'm 18. I've never had oil heat before.
Yeah.
So that's just like one little thing of just like life that I learned, and ways I got in trouble with roommates and stuff like that. And anyway, so from there, so this was 2004 to 2005. So 2004 was the year the Sox won. That was the first year they won.
Another part we'll edit out. Go ahead.
It was also
Jamie's favorite part.
The year the Bruins won, and it was the year the Pats won. And it was the year that we had a 36-inch blizzard, and that was the biggest blizzard they'd had in like 100 years. And the total snowfall for that year was over 100 inches.
Oh my God.
And something
That's
else.
because God hates the Red Sox too, man. Damn.
But it was, everything happened that year.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty incredible time to be in Boston.
Sure.
And just, the Sox one, and my roommates kind of looked at me and they're like, you don't go out. I was like, no, but I mean, the whole city's going out there. Everyone's going to the streets. And they're like, you don't go. Just trust us. Don't go. You don't know what you're getting into.
Like they would know. It hadn't happened in 100 years.
Well, I mean, it turns out like someone got killed by the police. Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. As you were saying.
Yeah, but I mean, like people got so excited. They were like flipping cars and stuff. And the police went out and they were supposed to, they had like the shotguns with bean bags.
Yeah.
The riot control that they're supposed to shoot low.
Right.
And they were just, boom, shooting. And they shot someone in the head with a bean bag and killed him. And
God.
So yeah, my roommate's like, don't go outside. We'll celebrate inside. Anyway, so everything happened that year. But after being there for a year and starting to reapply to college and get back into it, I decided, okay, I've lived a year in the Northeast. Oh, and also we had a thing. We called it the chicken bus, but there was a Chinatown to Chinatown bus from Boston to New York. That was, it's like $10. Wow. And the reason why it was called the chicken bus was because, you could do whatever you wanted on this bus.
Yeah.
And it was famous for some, I assume Chinese, but I only say that because it was Chinatown to Chinatown, not making any sort of judgment here, but it was, people sometimes brought live chickens and things like that on the bus. So it became known as the chicken bus, or the chicken bone or something like that. But it was $10 and just drops you off in the middle of Chinatown, picks up in the middle of Chinatown. It's great.
Yeah.
So I went to New York, 12 times when I was in there or up there. And I had friends in school in New York, and another buddy of mine was in school up at Tufts in Boston. So we would, once a month, we'd just get on the bus and go to New York and hang out for the weekend. So I got a lot of the Northeast. I spent a lot of time in New York, got kicked out of a bar in New York as drinking underage is phenomenal. Got all of it.
Yeah.
So then decided, all right, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to go to New Orleans. So I applied to Loyola, New Orleans. And there's a big famous drummer named Johnny Vodakovich that was the drum teacher there. And some of his famous students are guys like Stanton Moore with Galactic, and he plays with everybody now. And then Brian Blade, who's this amazing jazz drummer. A lot of great folks have been under his tutelage. So yeah, I'm going to go to New Orleans. Complete opposite. I love New Orleans music. I like the vibe. Fuck it, I'm going there. But yet again, I applied too late because of some other things went wrong. And it was too late for me to apply for the music school. Because you always have to do that early because of auditions and all this kind of stuff.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Hard to get in. Right.
So I applied and just said I was going to be a German major. Just kind of general studies, And the great thing about Jesuits...
Did that make it weird?
Do what?
Did that make it weird?
Ja, sehr gut.
Das Bier ist gut.
The Reinheitsgebot. So the great thing about the Jesuits and Loyolas they're unrelated to one another, but they're all Jesuit schools. All the Jesuit priests, their whole thing was putting all their effort into education. So the way they do things is they just have a shitload of money that they give people. So I got a ton of scholarship money just as a German major. And so it's a private school that gave me just a shitload of money. I was like, done. I'm going to go there. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to walk into the music department and I'm going to go talk to the director and say, I know it's too late, but I just want you to know who I am for next year or whatever, next semester. So that's what I did. I go down and I go to the guy and tell him who I am. And he's like, yeah, we're full up already. I said, I know, but I'm going to be here. And my intention is to transfer into this program. So I just want you to know who I am and what I'm doing. Okay. And he says, well, come play for me just so I can hear you play. And this is like the orientation week. I'm there for like 4 or 5 days before school starts. It's maybe the second or third day. So I go and I play for him, and he goes, "Great, thanks for coming in. We'll talk to you later. I'm sure we'll be seeing you and all this stuff." And about 3 hours later, he calls me and says, "All right, yep, let's come back to my office. We're going to change your schedule. We're going to go ahead and make you a music major." I was like, I did it.
Yeah.
I fucking did it. All right. And after all these things had gone wrong with trying to get into college and being rejected or not even hearing from people, I proved it to this guy, and it worked. So I go out that night with a couple of friends I've made to the Maple Leaf or one of the uptown bars, because in New Orleans, no one's getting kicked out of a bar.
Yeah.
And drinking mind erasers all night and just, having a big old time. I get up the next morning and there's a whole bunch of commotion in the hallway. And it turns out there's this big hurricane coming. And everyone's like, yeah, this hurricane kind of turned and it looks like it's going to come toward New Orleans. So yeah, I think we're all just going to go to Baton Rouge, because that's at one of the orientation meetings. They said, yeah, we just bus everybody to Baton Rouge. You'll be there for a couple of days. It happens. No big deal. So I had some friends from Memphis that were in school there too. And they said, yeah, just come hang out with us. We'll go to Baton Rouge for a couple of days. All right, fine. Great. And I'm just, super hungover. And so I throw a couple pairs of shorts and stuff in the bag and grab my computer and leave everything else. And we get to Baton Rouge, turn the news on, and they say, Hurricane Katrina is going to destroy New Orleans.
Oh, no.
And, we're an hour away in Baton Rouge, and we're like, we should probably just go on to Memphis.
Yeah.
So we drive to Memphis, get there, turn the news on, basically as it's making landfall and, destroying everything. And in my, I guess I was 19 at that point. In my 19-year-old brain, I'm watching this thinking yes, there are people dying and people in much worse shape than I am. However, God clearly doesn't want me to go to college. This is not working. I am really striking out here.
Mm. And there's not a pipe organ company down here.
Well, I bet there might be, though.
Maybe.
Actually, I think there is. There's, if not in New Orleans, there's some definitely close.
There's a lot of pipe organs in New Orleans. That's just something I'm thinking
that's very true. So
it's called a joke, guys. Maybe it was.
We're all serious about pipe organs. Is
maybe
serious
it was only
business.
Maybe it was only smaller, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that joke didn't working.
Yeah. Carry on.
Pipe fitters union is strong. Anyway, so boom, now I'm back in Memphis, which is the one thing I was like, cannot happen. And now I'm back in Memphis as a result of a horrible hurricane. And I don't want to take any more time off of school. So I end up going to University of Memphis, which everyone just calls Tiger High.
Yeah.
And there are good programs in Memphis, and there are good professors. They're great musicians. There's a lot of good stuff there. Also, there are people who get pushed through high school who can't read, and you can be in a philosophy class and the guy next to you can't read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the University of Memphis.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like. And so my first semester there, I just dicked around for the whole semester, and I made Dean's List.
Wow.
And was just like, what the fuck is going on here? This isn't real. I am the worst student possible.
Yeah.
And I've made Dean's List.
I'm smart, but
yeah, this is a joke.
yeah.
And I did not get along with the drum teacher, which was a weird moment, because I've never, we were actually oil and water, and I get along with people pretty well.
Sure.
I'm a pretty affable guy, and man, this guy and I, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of lessons where he was trying to get me to do something and I was trying, and when we were both just like about to yell at each other, and to his credit, I remember him just being like, whoa, okay, let's take a break. Let's go over to the coffee shop. And we just left the lesson and we just went and got coffee, and we're just like, had to restart. And, it was just like, man, we're both trying, but we don't get along. This doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I hated being there. And the people that I came back to, all my friends that I played music with in high school, I called them all and was like, okay, well, I'm back and I'm ready. Let's do it. And one of the problems with Memphis is that there's this low-lying apathy about everything. Maybe it's changed now. It's been a long time. It's been 20 years. But in general, it's kind of one of the things you learn from the Stax Museum, actually, to do a little callback, is that I think that since King was shot in 68, oh God, I hope I said that right. I think it's 68. Memphis is scared to have good things. There's kind of this overall feeling of like, as soon as something's going to start to get good, something bad's going to happen. I think. I could be way off base, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, sure.
And Memphis is, known for garage rock. It's one of the things it's known for. It was soul music, garage rock, blues. And I have a lot of love for garage rock, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit mediocre. And I was playing music with people who some of them were really great players, but no one ever wanted to do anything beyond like a mediocre performance of garage rock, and no one wanted to get better. And everyone was really interested in just like having this sort of like protected Memphis thing. And I was like, yeah, but it's not doing anything. It's been doing the same thing since 1964. What are we doing here? So I just got really burned out, and, I hated the school, and I wasn't having any fun playing music with any of the folks I was playing music with. So I was like, all right, I'm done. Music isn't working. I got to do something else. Those Jesuits were really good with money. And I like philosophy and German. I'm going to start over again.
No.
So I went to Loyola Chicago, and they gave me another shit pile of money, and I became a philosophy major and took German. And by November of that year, realized I'd made a huge mistake. And, spending every night just reading tons of philosophy and trying to understand it, and just getting to the point of like, God, all I really want to do is play drums.
Yeah.
I took a guitar with me and I had a guitar in my apartment, and I played guitar all the time. But it's like, I think I've made a pretty big mistake here. So that then led me to just decide, like, well, I'm not going to stay here. I've got to transfer again. But since I'm not going to stick with philosophy, my second semester, I'm just going to take whatever classes I want. And Loyola is a really good school.
Yeah.
But what they're really good at is philosophy, theology, math, things like that. So I ended up taking like a bunch of theology and philosophy classes, and kind of got my way into this upper level Hinduism class, and just was like, I'm just going to take all this other stuff just because I think it's interesting. And so I actually had a lot of fun with that, and learned a lot of really cool stuff with that, and was able to really enjoy that time. And I love Chicago. I visited a bunch for various reasons, in high school band trips, or when I was working at the pipe organ company, there was an organ in Chicago that we worked on. So we were flying out to Chicago all the time. So I loved living in Chicago, and I had an apartment, and it was great.
It's a great sports town, except for baseball. Go ahead.
Man.
What a dick.
You don't like either division up there.
He's a Cubs fan. We're actually going to
knock that off, Hunter.
We're going to Cubs. We're going to a Cubs.
Knock that ash off and relight it. Now you can get your groove on.
Yeah, there we go. So now the other wrinkle in all this. Let me let's get going real quick.
Yeah. How you liking that cigar so far?
It's good. Both of these have been great.
Yeah. That's $100 cheaper a box than Underground 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody's ever heard of it.
Okay. Well, yeah.
But if you want a Maduro, that's not overpowering and that's just got the sweetness and the
traditional
flavor.
Maduro, what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So the other wrinkle in my time in Chicago is that summer before I moved up there, I started dating a girl who's from Memphis, but was going to school here at UT.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole time I was in Chicago, I was taking trips to Knoxville and she was coming to visit me. And one of those trips, after we'd been together for almost a year and I was like, well, I'd like to keep this going somehow. And I know I'm not going to stay at Loyola. I guess I can look at Knoxville. I like her a whole lot. So maybe I'd, see what that's like.
Did she know you were a drummer?
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I know. You got to lay it all out first. I'm a drummer. I got weird facial hair. You got to deal with it.
I like German.
So, and the other thing too, growing up in Memphis, Knoxville is like, what the hell's going on over there? That's Memphis, Delta, Tennessee. This is the thing. What the fuck's happening in Mountain Knoxville? Who knows what's going on over there? Music?
Big Orange. Big Orange.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you know is Big Orange and yeah, it just was never on my radar. I never considered it. So I come to visit and I go with her to a show at the Pilot Light that was great. And I was like, man, there's a lot of interesting folks around here. And then I called Keith Brown, the drum teacher at UT, and said, hey, I'm going to be transferring. I gave him a quick version of that story. But I was like, here's kind of what's going on. I will not have played drums in a year by the time I potentially go to school at UT. But I know that I need to get back into this. So I'm going to have some problems and I'll be really rusty, but I have a long history of it and all this stuff. I'd love to get a lesson with you and just kind of see what it's like. And he says, yeah, great. Come on. And so I come visit and I take a lesson with him and maybe like an hour and a half lesson. And when we get done, I pull out my wallet and like, all right, what do I owe you? And he just looks at me and says, put that shit away. What do you think you're doing? And I was like, well, you just gave me a 90-minute lesson. So I'm paying you for your time. And he says, I don't want your fucking money. I'm treating this like an audition.
Oh, wow.
He was like, you're in. Are you going to come here or not? And I said, well, you told me 10 things about my playing that no one has ever told me. And you seem to be more dialed in than anyone I've ever met.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm coming. He goes, great. Don't pay me. This was an audition. You're going to have to do a formal audition, but you're in.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Practice up.
Yeah. It's like, okay. So I moved here and, a couple months after moving in, I played my first gig and then by the end of the time I was in school, I was playing 3 or 4 nights a week and still in school. And yeah, and I'd had since my junior year of high school, and living in Boston for that summer, I hadn't lived in the same place for more than a year
Yeah.
in years at that point. So when I moved here, I like didn't unbox anything. Not because I was planning to leave. It was just because I was so used to leaving everything in boxes.
Sure.
And so it took me about 4 years of living here before I finally was like, I could get rid of these boxes. I could actually start kind of settling down here a little bit. And, you know, crazy thing, this is a mind-blowing thing. You can get paid to play gigs here.
Yeah.
In Memphis, you don't make any money playing gigs.
Yeah.
It sounds really dumb, but I kind of didn't know that you could get paid to play a gig. I thought that you played gigs and played gigs and played gigs, and then at some point, you got a big gig and you finally started making some money. It never occurred to me that you could go to the bistro and play a jazz gig. At the end of the night, they say, here's $50 and yeah, your meal's comped.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like, what? What are you talking about?
Hello, music lovers. Campbell's Music Room Guitars was opened and founded by our longtime friend Kyle Campbell back in 2017. If you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, you're always needing something. From strings, picks, or maybe a repair to your trusty instrument. Campbell's Music Room Guitars has a full line of all the stringed instruments. New and pre-owned, accessories, pedals, amplifiers, and here's the best part, it's a local, family-owned business where you will get the very best of sales and service from the owner himself. Campbell's Music Room Guitars has something for everyone. Did we mention that he also gives private lessons? Kyle is one of Knoxville's most multi-talented players and teachers with many years of professional teaching experience. Located at 5103 Kingston Pike, open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Give Kyle a call at 865-584-0041 or stop by and tell him McGill and Jamie sent you and you wanted to have one more for the good guys.
So
I just had this conversation the other day with Ben Fields last week. He was talking about Texas and well, thing about Texas and musicians and stuff came up, and then he was talking also about like, you know, I don't see anybody from there that's like really going out to all these different places, and because he's shooting for Lock and Key and directing with Lock and Key now. And I said, it's because they don't have to.
yeah. Right.
What do you mean? I'm like, well, hell, look how big Texas is. And you can be in 4 completely different regions within hours, and you don't have to leave. You know, you go down south, you play Lubbock, you go to Austin out east, and you go up to, down the southwest of San Antonio, swing back up through Houston. I mean, you don't have to leave Texas.
No.
No,
and
it's big enough that you're touring, and I said, you think you take somebody like myself at one time, you play one night a week in town in Knoxville, you play another night a week in Blount County, which is just minutes up the road. You play another night in Sevier County, which is minutes up the road. You play another night a week in Anderson County or Oak Ridge, just minutes up the road. And I'm like, you're working 5 days a week if you want.
Yeah.
Or 4 days a week if you want. I said, then if you make that rotation enough, you get your guarantees up, you start making some fans. Now, instead of making $200, $150, $125 a night, now you're counting in tips and you're counting in merchandise. And I said, hell, you're making $350, $400 a night. If you're, if you're a solo artist and you can go out and cover the time and entertain. Yeah. I was like, well, what the fuck do I need to go to Nashville for?
Right.
Why do I need to go to, I mean, obviously you want to, and I've been able to do that, but that's the deal around here. And that story is perfect example of it. You mean I don't have to go down to Roberts, Western World on the Strip at Nashville on Broadway and play 6 hours with no breaks and make $37,
right?
Because I had to send somebody from the band to get tips.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
who was your first gig with here?
It was with Kenton Martin.
Okay.
And Daniel Brown.
Okay.
Yeah. Played at the Bistro. And then I played it was either the Riverboat or the Volunteer Princess, the yacht. I can't remember which one came second, but it was the next one was with Wes Lunsford, and I think Clint was on that one. And that was
you were elated.
Yeah, it was great. It was like, hey, I've got jazz gigs. I'm relearning how to play drums, and I've got gigs, and it's mailing me for $50. But I got $50, and I'm playing with great players, and there's work. People are working,
getting paid to work on your chops.
Yeah, and the funny thing too about Knoxville is that in comparison to Memphis,
sure.
And to be clear, Memphis is where I'm from. I will defend Memphis to the teeth.
Sure.
But the same, like if someone's saying shit about Memphis, I'm going to defend Memphis.
Yeah.
But I will also
on stage.
Do it
on stage.
On stage, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll get on the radio and just say horrible things.
Hey.
But at the same time, I will be the first to say Memphis is a shit show.
Yeah.
Just if somebody else says it,
Well, sure.
It's my own shit show. So, but Memphis has a thing where it seems like, and this could all have changed by now, I don't know. But Memphis kind of has a thing where it thinks that all roads lead to Memphis, and people go to Memphis to be Memphis musicians, and they're amazing players there doing amazing things. Nobody cares. And that was kind of what I learned when I got here, was that nobody actually cares about Memphis. And the folks that are really good and the folks that are doing stuff get out. Maybe they go back at some point, but they figure out like, oh, we got to hit the road.
Yeah.
Or we got to relocate or something like that.
Yeah.
I was talking to Mick Harrison about this the other day a little bit. We ran into him and we were kind of sharing some of these same stories.
Sure.
But anyway, so I come here, there's work, getting paid. And then I started to realize that, Knoxville is actually like the hub of all these spokes. Nashville's a couple hours away. Atlanta's a couple hours away. Asheville's a couple hours away. Lexington's a couple hours away. Chattanooga is a couple hours away.
Geographically, where?
It's 7 hours to DC. It's
4 hours you can be in how many different states?
Exactly.
Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Atlanta, Alabama,
Ohio.
Yep.
Ohio.
Yeah, Cincinnati's 4 hours. It's like, it's not hard to be based in Knoxville and to legit be everywhere.
Yeah.
In a pretty short amount of time. And Knoxville's easy to live in.
Yeah.
And
cheaper than Memphis.
Well, right now that's changing because
right now it's any damn where. Yeah.
But until like 2 years ago, yes.
Yeah.
So that started to kind of realize that, like, I could be based here and can do anything I want, and I can afford to go do anything I want. I love living in the Northeast, but you're hindered by money.
Yeah.
It's hard, especially in New York. You can't do anything. Now, New York has everything you could possibly want, But even then, you've got to work really hard to be able to afford to do any of those things that you really want.
Yeah.
And to go to those places and go see music and then afford to be able to play or to have a place to practice or whatever. Here, it's like, I can go play Atlanta, or I can go to Nashville and do whatever I want. As long as you're playing with the people you want to play with and you can get the gig, boom, go. So, yeah. So that's the sort of long, wild roundabout way of how I ended up here. And then how, I moved here in 2007 and moved here thinking, Knoxville's got some stuff to offer, but I will be moving on at some point. And here we are 17 years later. Yeah. I've lived here almost as long as I lived in Memphis, which is,
crazy to think.
Yeah. In a year, this will, in 2 years, I will have lived in Knoxville longer than my home. So that's pretty wild. But
awesome, man.
Something I'd like to ask, and I keep thinking about this. I guess you're the first. We've had drummers on the show, but you're the first jazz drummer, right? When you say,
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, went to jazz department for.
Well, we've had Hunter, and we've had Whitlock,
and
Mark, and Nate.
That's right.
So we've had 4 drummers.
Yeah. But one thing I want to ask is about this movie I saw. I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say, but it's got one of my favorite actors in it, J.K. Simmons, that movie, Whiplash.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think about, because we've had a lot of people on that have been in the jazz department over there at UT. And I know Brown, and because I worked at Pick and Grin for a long time. So a lot of those guys would come in. Both the Browns. That one and Donald. So Coker, all of them. Just, at times. Anyway, what I want to know is that movie. Have you seen it? Whiplash. It's called Whiplash.
I don't think so.
You would know. It's about a jazz drummer is trying to join, and I guess
definitely haven't seen it.
It's fantastic.
I don't give a shit about jazz.
Well,
I mean, other than Hunter.
And really, and it's
no, I haven't seen it.
It's more about the music than anything else. But anyway, you've got this sadistic instructor that is just
okay. I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about now. Yes,
10 years old now, but man, it's really good. It's a great movie in itself. Now, here's what my questions are: what is the environment like in the jazz department over here? And is that movie totally bullshit for the most part, as far as you run across guys like that? Because here's why I ask. For years, I've been here my whole life. We've been here our whole life. So I've intermingled with jazz guys from that department for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. They all got that air of, it's jazz, and then everything else is for a while. Especially when they when they're in the department.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of that movie. It's like, okay, you're in this world, and that's the only world you're going to be in. And by God, jazz is it. And every other music is inferior or whatever. Anyway, go ahead.
So the question is it like that?
Well, I guess a 2-part question. First question, what is the environment like on the inside? My wife was a music major there. Okay. Vocal major. Totally different animal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As far as the people you're with around than the jazz guys.
Yeah.
And gals.
So it's not as crazy as that movie made it seem, for a couple of reasons. One, that movie was sort of trying to act like that's whatever the school was. I can't remember the name that they gave the conservatory, but it was supposed to be like a Juilliard. It was supposed to be presented like the top hardest conservatory where it's just cutthroat all the time. There is someone who was not unlike J.K. Simmons' character. Not to that degree. Not sure. Not like throwing chairs or anything. But there was definitely someone that was very tough, who did not hesitate to make students cry and to tear you down, all that kind of stuff. And that, I'm not going to say any names, but that whoever's listening will know. That person had reasons for doing that. I've actually talked to them since then, and they kind of explained some stuff to me at one point, but they had reasons why they were that way at school. But in general, as far as the actual environment and everyone there, it was not cutthroat like that. I think a lot of that has to do, though, with UT not being a conservatory, and Knoxville not being New York. One of the really great things that Knoxville has is that it is in general a really supportive music scene, and that the musicians are all supportive of one another.
Yeah, I think that's true. Now, not always that way, but yes,
not always. And there are definitely people who don't like other folks, and of course you're going to have all that, but like in the jazz world, it's the idea of a cutting session or a cutting match where you're going to have a jam session, and each person that gets up to play is going to try to outdo and just destroy the person that played before. You don't really have that here. It's a lot more supportive. And, the jazz scene has had sort of ebbs and flows as far as the amount of venues and the amount of gigs that are available. But in general, kind of everyone that wants to play and is good enough to play can get a gig here. So, and there's enough work and there's enough good players that if you're a good dude and guy or girl, whatever, if you're good and you're easy to get along with, you can get a gig. So that cutthroat thing isn't really there. And as a little aside, I actually hated that movie.
Well, I was going to ask you.
Yeah. But the reason why I hated it was because I looked at it from having been in that exact same position with, there was a person there that was tough like that. And so I was watching, thinking, I know this character, and now I am Miles Teller. I'm this kid. And everything that he did in the movie was wrong. Right. And so J.K. Simmons was just like, oh, yeah, I know that. I know where that person's coming from. I know what that character's like. I get it. But the kid was like, this kid's a piece of shit. And this isn't how it is. And then little small things like I think he gave some interviews where he said he learned to play drums and that was really him playing. No, it was not at all. He flat out said that. And if you play drums and you watch him play, you're like, no, he's not the person making any of those sounds. And then continuity stuff where like the way he holds his sticks and the way he set up his drums was just completely wrong. And like his technique was horrible. And technique, especially nowadays and especially in jazz, isn't necessarily a tried and true thing, because it's, as you kind of get further along, you develop a technique that allows you to create the sound you want to create. Whereas classical is much more like, this is the technique to make this prescribed sound.
You conform to the technique.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jazz is more like, if you're hearing something that you want to go for, use your technique to get there. So, I mean, I've seen drummers that play, I wish I had a pen, but instead of like this, where the stick is like an extension of your thumb, they'll play with the stick coming up to where it's like an extension of their pointer finger, and where their they're playing down, like they're pointing at a cymbal.
That seems weird.
And like Keith Moon, when he played, he had his index fingers sticking straight out on the sticks, and he played, which doesn't allow the stick to bounce. So it's all wrist. I've seen some person who had the stick like almost like a chopstick or something, like going through his index and middle finger, where the bounce was like you're holding a baseball, where the bounce was between those sticks instead of between the thumb and index finger, and was hitting down on a cymbal. And he sounded great. And this wasn't in Knoxville, it was in Atlanta. I saw a guy doing this. But he sounded great. So his technique didn't make any sense, but it worked. So that's like a little example of you figure out how to use your technique to the sound you want to make. But in that movie specifically, he was clearly trying to use like traditional jazz technique. Traditional as in his left hand is turned like under and his right hand is over, like you're playing on a marching drum. But he was holding his sticks like someone who's never held sticks before. And then just the way he was playing was just flailing, and it didn't make any sense. So as I'm watching it, I couldn't get past that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
It's like, oh, this is driving me crazy. And his character had all these lines in the sand of it's this way or the highway and fuck everything else and all that. And anyway, I couldn't get past that. So I had a hard time with that movie.
Well, it's like watching a sports movie, that somebody, they don't have their fact checker there, if you will, or their professional to.
Yeah. I don't think unless you're a drummer, that would be a distracting part of this. The movie itself, aside from obviously they're not going to teach that kid to play at that level for a movie. I mean, it's not like losing 50 pounds for a role. It's like you've got to work, years to be proficient enough to play at that level. But you would like it because we haven't been in that scenario. It's a well done movie. It's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. As a piece of cinema, it's a great movie. It's really well done. It's shot well. Like, it's a good story. It's all good. It's just that I related too much to it for it to.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to know. Hey, how close is that to, obviously they're going over the top with this guy's character, because I'd have killed him, man. I'd have been in jail. I would have been playing drums. I'd have killed this guy. Seriously, it's over the top. But, I just wanted to see with that whole, another question I had about this, and I've thought about this a lot with our guests, and just never brought it up, is like, okay, y'all are in the jazz, there's the drummers, the bass players, and all these cats, whatever. It's like walking around, everybody knows who the big guy on campus is. It's like, oh, there goes Daniel Kimbrough. That, is that how it is? Is there always a pecking order? Even though you're complimentary, you're still like, man, okay.
I mean, you'd have to know.
Yeah, you'd have, I mean, there's, you definitely know, because we all play for each other. There's multiple times where you're watching other groups play, or you go to somebody else's gig and you see him and you get to know him, and you're like, oh shit, that guy's got great hands, or like, man, that guy his solos are amazing, or that guy's time is undeniable,
Yeah.
So you get to learn all that kind of stuff, and you figure that all out, and you have your own sort of internal, like, all right, next semester I want to be getting more calls than that guy, but no one here is like not out to get anybody.
It's not bulletin board material. It's more so as a personal thing, as as I want to be that good. Mm-hmm. I want those gigs. I can be that good.
Steve, we had Steve Wildsmith on several weeks ago, and he's teaching a class at Maryville College on journalism, basically. And we had this talk about it because I've got a lot of hours and 2 or 3 degrees, and we talked about this dynamic, I guess, in the music, especially in that part of the music department there, as opposed to, say, German. You know, I'm a German major, and this is what Steve and I talked about. It was always refreshing, and it very rarely happened where you would have an instructor that would not only instruct, but you knew that instructor could also do it.
Yeah.
Like do the work.
Oh, yeah.
I only had a couple of those. We had a business law class that was taught by an attorney, and she was a badass. Then I had in logistics program, I had a guy that was like he owned a railroad. You know, he was in the bit. He was,
Yeah.
But in that department, the instructors are badasses.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you're being taught by somebody that's also a doer, not just a, hey, here's a theory about it. You know, Donald Brown will go over and sit and play, and here's what it is, or any of them, really. So that's a different dynamic that I bet that's nice. You trust your instructor, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And when I was in school, the faculty was, the rhythm section was Donald, Rusty Holloway, Keith Brown, and Mark Bowling. And Bowling, Brown, and Holloway had their Thursday night gig at Baker Peters.
Seen them.
And plus all the other gigs. So, I mean, that was kind of a thing too, was, hey, if you're not working on Thursday night and if you don't have something due Friday, you need to go see them play. You know, you need to go sit in, you need to go watch the instructors, and yeah, those dudes, they can throw down. I remember I remember going to, it was a concert. Knoxville used to do a thing called Jazz for Justice. And there used to be some sort of pipeline that Mark Bowling had set up with this guy in South Africa. Zim Awana, I think was his name.
Okay.
But yet again, I probably shouldn't have tried to say that because I've just butchered it, but it's something like that.
Hey, I just thought you were trying new things. I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. But I'll say, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they set up this benefit concert together, and they would bring in all kinds of folks to come play. And so there would always be these like master classes and some big groups that would come in. And this is back in, God, whatever it was at the time, Blue Cats or Red Iguana or whatever the hell it was called. I don't remember what it was called at that time. But, it was there. And I remember Jeff Sipe Trio was playing. And so Mike Seal was on guitar. And I think Taylor Lee was playing bass at that time. I can't remember. But so, you know, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And just throwing down. And the faculty played afterward. And all of us were kind of like, man, we know, like, Mike has got his
Follow
own.
that, killer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a moment.
They quietly came in and busted everybody's ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. Just like, okay.
Yeah. It's different too when they can just quietly come in and bust your ass versus, like we were saying earlier, beating you over the head with it. You know, it's like, no.
Was the trio out there watching them too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody's watching everybody else. And you know, the Sipe Trio, those guys were loving every minute of it. Because at the end of the day, they're all just watching people be badasses. So who doesn't want to see that? Yeah. But I think a lot of us students were watching thinking like, damn, how are you going to follow the Sipe Trio?
Yeah.
Holy shit. And then the faculty walks up and just slays. It's like, okay.
That's how you do it.
That's what's happening here. Got it. So yeah, we definitely had that. And also to your question about, are people walking around with, you know, jazz is jazz and everything else is everything else. That is something I've thought a lot about, and that's not as much of a thing here. And I think it's because Knoxville has a pretty good diverse music scene, and there's a lot of gigs doing a lot of things. And even though that there are a lot of jazz gigs, especially at that time, 17 years ago, there were a lot of jazz gigs. Not quite as many now, but still a pretty good amount. You're not really going to make all your money playing jazz gigs. You're going to play other gigs, and you're going to figure out that if you only want to play jazz, you're going to have to do something else. So for me, my whole thing from when I was the first band I was in was like, I want to play every gig. That's just kind of end of story. I want to play every gig. If someone calls me, I want to be the guy that country gig, done, I'm in. Funk gig, done, I'm there. Blues, jazz, rock, metal. I'm terrible at metal, but I was in a metal band for a little while. I was like, yeah, I want to do all of it. I want to be the guy that can say yes and can show up and can do it. So I was able to start working a lot because of that. And then found, like I said, by the time I was in my 4th year here and then my 5th year, because of all those schools I went to, none of my credits transferred, which was another fun thing.
Oh my God.
So I was I was an undergrad for 7 years, which is part of why I never got a master's. But
holy shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But by my 5th year in Knoxville or at UT, I was playing 4 nights a week, but I was playing church gigs. I was playing blues gigs. Sure. I was playing jazz gigs. I was playing country gigs at the pub. I was, playing everywhere. So, what I think jazz does is, because you have to, especially with drums, it does take a lot of listening, and it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of work to be able to do all the different sort of styles within jazz and what gets sort of brought into jazz, that it does set you up to be a drummer that can do a lot of things. It gets tricky if you try to be a jazz drummer playing other gigs, which you have to kind of break yourself of. And I've had people say, like, I did the church gig I was playing one time. I had one of the singers say, like, "Oh yeah, but you're a jazz drummer doing this," and I wanted to be like, "Motherfucker, I'm not playing jazz here, and I'm
a drummer."
Yeah,
drummer.
I'm a drummer playing 4 on the floor, loud as shit.
That's right.
I'm not playing jazz here. This isn't. You just wrote me off because of an assumption you made. That's not what I'm playing. But that is a thing you have to work on, though. And at some point, I probably did do something, or probably played a fill, or I did something on the ride cymbal that just made him think, "Oh, a rock drummer would never do that. He's a jazz drummer." And so, on one hand, fuck that guy. But on the other hand, I walked away from it thinking, okay, I'm going to do less on the ride cymbal. I was playing some embellishments that I thought were cool. Maybe they're not cool. Maybe I don't need it. But you learn all of that. And jazz is really good for, like I said, for listening. I mean, that's what jazz is you have to listen and you have to make the group function. And I think it's different from a lot of other styles where in a lot of other things, like you have a role to play. And this isn't a good or bad thing. It's like you have a role to play and you stay in this role. And as long as you're taking care of this, everything else gets taken care of.
Yeah.
Jazz is much more, everything is kind of intermingled. So, and everything is, because solos can just sort of keep going and all you're given is a head, just like the form. And it could be 3 minutes, it could be 12 minutes. You have to think about arc and shape to the song. And you have to think about, like, I wonder how long this guy's going to solo. I wonder how many choruses is he going to take. I probably shouldn't play balls out like on his first note. I should probably give him some room to develop something.
Stylings.
Yeah. So as a result, when you go to play a 3-minute song, like if we're doing a country song, where I'm coming from is, okay, well, this is going to have, there's some pretty standard forms that this song's probably going to follow. So I immediately know I'm going to start here. These handful of grooves is what's going to work and what this song needs. I also know that I don't need to be at a 7 on verse 1. I need to be at a 7 on the second chorus and either kick it to a 9 for the bridge or drop it down to a 5 so that the chorus after the bridge can be a 9 or a 10.
Sure. Yeah.
And so before every song, I'm thinking about the shape and the arc and thinking about, like, when you're playing with jazz, the more.
But just real quick, is you're drawing all of that in conclusion and from the training you receive on shaping and building the song in the jazz world and a jazz song.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So in that regards, it seems like it would be really beneficial if you wanted to be that guy who could play any gig, any whatever, because you're so used to that mindset or that readiness to do what you need to do on Jazz Bowl Island.
Exactly.
Or whatever,
Yeah. And that's exactly what it lends itself to. And what's great about it is you come in with a sort of a little bit more of a bigger picture view of things. At least that's what I've taken from it.
Well, that's great. And I think it's very heady. It's very smart.
And the cool thing too with jazz is because typically you're going to,
and it leaves you somewhere to go.
Right. And I remember this one master class with a guy named Terrell Stafford, this trumpet player. And one of the things he talked about was, typical jazz setup is a 4-piece kit. So snare, tom, bass drum, and then typically 2 ride cymbals. Like rock, country, and everything, you'll have a ride cymbal and a crash cymbal. But this is 2 ride cymbals, typically. And in a trio, like a piano trio or guitar trio, this doesn't quite come into play as much. But if you're going to play with a quartet or a quintet, and you're going to have a horn player of any sort, this guy, Terrell Stafford, what he had us do was he started talking about the actual sound of the cymbals and the actual sound of the drums. And you mentioned sonic space earlier. And this, drums are all of it.
High and low. Drums
take up space in everybody else's space, basically.
Yep.
So
that's a good point.
You have to be really discerning about how you use it. And so Terrell was telling us, he said, okay, somebody get up and play, and they're playing, and then they finish the tune, and he says, all right, on my solo, and he's a trumpet player, he goes, on my solo, you played this cymbal. Why did you play this cymbal as opposed to that cymbal? Now play them both back and forth. And one goes ding, and one of them goes ding. And he's like, all right, why did you play the one that goes ding? And the drummer was just kind of like, it was kind of right here. It was the main one I use. And this, like, the right hand, if you're a right-handed drummer, the right hand ride cymbal is kind of the main one. And then you have a left side ride. That's your alternate ride. That's just kind of the one I was using over here. He goes, all right, but you played the one that goes ding as opposed to the one that goes ding. How come you didn't play the darker one? And all of us were like, well, what? What's he talking about? And then he said, we're all taking up sonic space. A high-pitched ride cymbal with a high-pitched instrument is going to get in the way.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play with an alto saxophone that's high, you probably want to play a low-pitched ride cymbal. If you're going to play with like a flugelhorn or a tenor sax, you may want to play the higher-pitched ride cymbal so that you're not getting in the way. And if you have a flat ride, so a ride that doesn't have a bell, it has a completely different sound. Well, that sounds great with a bass because it it doesn't have the same sort of wash. It doesn't take up as much space. It goes ding, has that kind of sound. So the bass can go blah, 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 blah. And then all you're going to do is go ding, ding, ding. You're going to stay out of the way. So then you take that and you go play a country gig. And you know that if someone is singing, if someone has a high voice, like if you and I are playing and you have kind of a higher tenor voice when you sing a lot of time, it doesn't make much sense for me to play my ride cymbal when you're singing.
Yeah.
Because that's taken up, the cymbal's just going to keep washing out. It's going to make a bunch of noise. Now, the hi-hat is a really high-pitched sound.
No balance.
But it's quick.
Yeah.
And so it can get out of the way. Or, fuck it, don't even play the cymbals. Play a rim.
Yeah.
Play a cross stick. Do something, just kick and snare while the vocals are happening, and just leave a whole bunch of space. And then as soon as you have 2 bars of an instrumental break, slam the cymbal. Take up some space, then suck it all back. And so that's where the jazz training really helps, because it really kind of gets your ear and your brain thinking about, here's the shape, here's the specific sounds, this is what works with this instrument, this works with that instrument. And then once you do that, then stuff just kind of starts building itself.
I think the word of the day is styling. Mm-hmm. And you're doing stuff to it's exactly what it is. And you're creating, like you said, you're sitting there with all of it.
Yeah.
So you have to pick and choose to where balance is going to come from.
Yeah.
That's what I take away from it. But any rate, well, so right now, and for the last at least couple 3 years that I know of, you'd gotten a gig with John Stickley Trio.
Yeah, since 2018.
Yeah, and how's that going? You guys are playing a lot?
We are. It's been a little bit slower the past couple of years because Stickley and his wife had a couple of kids. So we don't do...
Damn kids.
We don't do the long runs like we used to. But we go out most weekends, and we still do fly dates and things like that. So we're still getting out to the West Coast, and, off mic, I was saying earlier, we're going to be in Vegas in the 3 or 4 weeks, I think, and Colorado. And, we still get out and are able to do some big trips, just not quite as long as we used to.
And I guess you guys have got recorded music on wherever anybody gets their music from these days?
Yes. Yeah, I'm on 2 of the records. There's, I think, 5 total now, but the most recent 2, which the most recent one is called Mean Time's Up. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Scripting the Flip. That's the one before that.
Okay.
Golly, I almost forgot the name of the damn record. Anyway, Scripting the Flip and Mean Time's Up.
Okay.
But there's 3 others with the guy that was playing drums before me, but they're all great records.
Right on. Well, folks, you get you a big dose of the John Stickley Trio. Anywhere you get your music, you can hear Hunter on those 2 albums that he's said. One of the things I noticed real quick as we get ready to close up, but one of the things I noticed straight away was like, we played a gig together, me, you, Poe, and Daniel, one time at Barley's. And I noticed several of the guys. I came over to a party at your place one night and met some of the guys that you're talking about that you all were in the programs with, and you all were very complimentary of me and my singing and stuff, and introduced me to those guys. But I also noticed that night that we played at Barley's that they all came out.
Yeah.
And stayed through at least one set, I think, maybe through halfway through the other, or maybe the whole thing. I don't remember now, but I would imagine that inward competition and that togetherness of playing in front of each other and with each other in classes and in those instances, you know, and with it being, again, not a conservatory, but being here in Knoxville, that there's a lot of camaraderie that works throughout the guys. And, you know, just like you saying, you know, you would have students come and see the teachers.
Yeah.
You know, then you would have the teachers come out and see the kids' gigs. I would imagine all of that in one way or another kind of pulls everybody together.
Yeah,
as far as, you know, being a little bit more community based, whether it was, you know, the guy you're pulling for or the girl you're pulling for or the big player on campus, it seems to me. But very interesting. You're one of my favorite guys. We don't ever get to talk and hang out as much as I'd like to, but every time we've been together, I feel like we've always had a good time.
Oh yeah,
and laughed a lot, you know, which is important for me especially. But man, you're welcome back anytime. You can even come up, and I got the Major League, I got an MLB Network. We can watch the Yankees play and make fun of them. We can do that anytime you want, with any of the golf games or the games, or anytime, or come up and smoke some cigars. That is a just to catch everybody up. I started out with My Father the Judge. What'd you start out with tonight?
Started out with that 30th anniversary Perdomo in the sun grown in the Churchill size.
And Hunter had
I had the Garcia and Garcia.
He had La Bijou 1922, My Father.
Yeah. And then the second guy was the Montosa Toro.
Montosa Maduro in the Toro.
Yeah.
Which we'll be talking about in a coming episode.
Yeah.
Both of which were great.
And I smoked, secondly, a Padron 7000 Natural in Toro size, I guess. 7,000 size, whatever that is.
And that was actually from 2021. That one's been aged for a while.
Fantastic.
And I finished up with a Nicaragua series, AJ Fernandez in the Toro. A really great cigar, especially in that size. If some people are not a big AJ fan, it's too pepper heavy, but this cigar is not.
Some people ain't Yankees fans. Not everybody can be perfect. So,
and some people have more mouth than they have ass. And bad timing. Timing. I said timing. Jamie, you want to do another one?
Hell yeah.
All right. Hunter, cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Remember, you guys for having me. You know, be kind to one another. Do good things for each and everybody. You know, we've got anybody can be an asshole. It takes somebody and something to not be. And remember, it costs nothing to be kind, but there is a price that is paid for cruelty. So love one another, be good to each other, and one more for the good guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find.